The following presentation
of the Eric McKenna Project is sponsored by
no one.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Some onions on it. Yeah, it was like all liney and stuff like that. I mean, under a ton of sauce, it looks fine. The shape of it is fine. Yeah. It was the color.
So it's kind of like this. Like
it was not even that pretty. It was like a naked McRib without sauce is just.
So what you're saying is there's no rib in there?
No, just a.
Well, don't you think? See, the problem with pork in general, to me, is it too siller to the flesh tone of human flesh.
Yeah, and it was very like.
Cooked. You know what I mean?
It was.
Wrap your head around that a little bit.
I hear we're kind of similar.
Yeah.
Humans and pigs.
Yeah.
Like the flesh tone is just too.
I think DNA strand wise, there's only a few genomes or whatever.
That's why they can use pigs' hearts for transplant.
Sense. I mean,
really?
Yeah.
I mean,
pigs' hearts are big though, aren't they?
Yeah, but I
Wait a second. They're putting pigs' hearts in people?
I think so. Yeah.
We should know. We held one, I held one at the.
I don't know if it's the whole thing, but I feel like they use if they like replace like a like your hearts in four
chambers. I don't
chambers.
think they're putting pig hearts in people.
I'm googling it.
They're putting pig valves in people's
keep
hearts.
talking.
I think,
maybe
right?
that's it. Maybe they put
they use
valve.
pieces of
but
pig.
they're not putting a pig's heart in somebody.
So did you say that?
I feel like I learned this from a
like
movie, much like you learn most of your information.
I do not. I try not to repeat any information that I supposedly learned from a movie.
Pig heart transplant.
The what now?
Can a human have a pig heart transplant? Pig heart valves are routinely transplanted.
It's not the whole friggin' pig heart.
And some patients with diabetes have received pig pancreas cells. Pig skin has also been used.
Cells, not the whole pancreas.
Well, genetically, like we were saying,
it's different.
Can we use the tail for something? It's so cute.
Can you just put
I want
a tail
to
on
implant the tail somewhere.
That'll be the next plastic surgery craze. People
butt implants. Two pig tails. I have horns, but they're curly.
Your earrings kind of look like little pigtails.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been waiting for this.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. Well, and there are all different colors of pigs too. That they have like little black pigs and brown pigs. So you could for all skin types, I feel like you could find a match.
Did you say we share DNA with a pig?
I feel like Pete is coming after us hard after this episode.
I've already said something.
I'm not a genetic scientist, but I've heard that we're genetically similar to pigs. Like there's only a few little. What is it?
Chromosomes
Are
that
you
are
been
different.
to the mall? It's definitely possible. Been to the mall?
Hey,
We've all been to the mall.
I don't find a McRib. When I eat a McRib, I don't assume it's like a true. I don't think it's true.
How far removed from the pig do you think it is? I mean,
what is it exactly?
I'm sure a lot of soy product and whatever that pink slime is. There's probably some of there.
I was about to say soy product. That's wishful thinking. I'm pretty sure it's all styrofoam of some sort. But it's like if you see a naked one, it does look pieced together.
Hold up. Check this out. This is from Google. This is not my hard work here. The genetic DNA similarity between pigs and human beings is 98%.
Oh, you got to be kidding
Oh,
me.
come on.
Take it up with Google.
Take it up with Google.
The damn Google.
So even like
that's depressing.
Maybe it's encouraging.
Yeah, pigs are very smart animals.
And they're
because
also
think
very
about how much
clean
further
animals.
we could go with such minimal effort.
Walk that back for me, please.
Well, look, there's not much difference between us and a pig. So if we're evolving towards something else, we don't have that far to go.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. Good point.
But I'm not really for playing around with genetics. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like that's a huge Pandora's box type of thing.
You know that whole CRISPR thing, right?
Pardon?
CRISPR? You don't know what CRISPR is?
What, like genetically engineering crispier chicken?
No, like crispier babies.
What? Whoa.
Sorry.
Wait.
I'll let you explain that one.
Yeah,
So CRISPR, from what I understand, it initially started where they were trying, I think, actually to get rid of AIDS. They were trying to alter the genetic code in such a way that like AIDS wouldn't affect people anymore. And in doing so, they realized that they could alter other genetic information. And the fear is that it will lead to designer babies.
Babies. I've heard of this.
Like basically, you can
people with a catalog, like, ooh, I want that nose, and I want those curls.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I was a designer baby.
Obviously,
decades ago.
You're ahead of your time.
Yes.
But yeah, that's so.
I was an accidental purchase.
Oh, did your parents have buyer's remorse?
You were a coupon throw
every day.
Still to this day.
All right, so we are reconvening here. We have to eventually we have to officially, quote unquote, start the show, right? Officially.
We started. It's going.
I think this is number 7 for us, right?
Lucky number 7.
I think this is number 7.
Roll the
or
dice.
6 or 8. Or
no, we had 6. I know we had 6.
This is number 7. Lucky number 7.
I like it.
It was so much fun the first time. Look, we've done it 6 times since. So, but thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody see each other, and there were kind of a little bit of.
I think we need to acknowledge that we have a little bit of a different lighting concept going on in here.
The aesthetics of the room.
A little. Well, that's a big word. A little different gig going on over here.
I've been pushing hard for this.
I know. Jerry's in his element.
You have. You gave me a challenge.
I love this.
I'm trying to.
I love it.
Accommodate the challenge. Right?
Do you notice how we're all talking a little bit softer too? We're all like
Jerry just hasn't got wound up yet. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's coming.
So
we took all the drinks. Where's my iced tea?
What? Here, take your iced tea. I have coffee.
I know you do.
No, we don't hand it over the lights.
Jeez.
So throw it. Just throw it.
Respect the space.
As he throws it around the room.
Yeah, but not near the lights.
You didn't break a light.
I was going to reach
No one's
gently.
ever broken a light here.
I never.
That's amazing.
I want it known.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. There's never been a light broken in the studio.
We have communal property between us, as is the law in Pennsylvania. We are passing shit constantly back and forth, and I will never allow anything to be passed over these lights. Ever.
Okay.
Oh my God!
He's made a decree. This is
you know what?
going to end up in our marriage contract.
Take
just
that
so you
with
know.
a grain of salt.
It's going to be.
Eric, the next addition to this room should be like one of those tubes at the bank, and it goes on that side of the table. That sucks it over.
That'd
in a
be
Julia
awesome.
sack.
That'd be awesome.
I know.
No, just have it go all over different parts of the city.
Oh yeah, and then you could have cameras like in different like.
We have to do a live show at some sort, you know, and then we like shoot things to listeners and watchers with the tube.
Yeah, people can call in.
What do you think about it? Free t-shirt giveaway.
We'll get like Easter eggs. And we'll put Reese's in the Easter eggs and just like.
Hey, I'm calling in to tell you guys that my tube malfunctioned, and I think I'm gonna have to talk to an attorney.
You cut to a guy and he's got like a big thing over his face.
We told you not to look in it.
Oh, you're breaking up, caller. You must be going through a tunnel.
I got nothing. Okay, so the idea today is that we're going to get down this esoteric.
Brass tacks here, guys.
You know, sometimes we call them rabbit holes. Sometimes we call them, down the wormhole. Today we're just going to call it, we're going to go down the shithole.
Oh, fuck.
And
I don't like that.
Yeah, but
I didn't agree to that. You should have specified that before we convened.
That whole phrase could have gone in many different directions.
That was not in the pre-show brief.
Wait, we have those? You didn't invite me.
Sort of.
What was the last hour?
That was watching Jerry eat chicken nuggets.
I had some of them too. They were
Nobody
good.
wants to see that.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So let's talk a little bit today about the concept of suffering. Not what Jerry puts us through on a semi-monthly basis here.
And everybody who's tuning in is just like, fuck this, I'm depressed.
That's the point to all this. So,
life's hard enough, guys.
there's so much, so many avenues to go from that concept of suffering. Now, suffering is part of the human condition. I would say that whether you're coming at it from a spiritual standpoint, that's an angle. If you're coming from a logical standpoint, because things are, life is observably, for most people, difficult. If you aren't born with means and born with reasonable good health, and those two things together, your life is going to have elements of difficulty, a lot of difficulty, just maneuvering through life. So my point to you is, let's talk about suffering. Whether you want to go the esoteric or the pragmatic or the logical route, I don't care. But humans seem to be working hard in the society to alleviate suffering, all kinds of suffering, to make the human condition easier. Would you not agree? If you don't agree, that's fine too.
Kind of not.
Okay, we'll go there.
On the surface, yeah.
Okay. And we have eliminated some kinds of suffering through technology and modern medicine and so forth.
For sure.
Would the ultimate state that we're all heading toward be what humans want, maybe in that we want to eliminate all suffering? And if so, what would life look like in the future, a century, 2 centuries ago, if we move in that direction? Will the quality of the human experience be worth it if suffering is eliminated? Let's just talk about suffering, and is it needed? If we start eliminating human suffering, will religion be obsolete? Will religion go away? Will the need for esoteric thought go away? But it all comes back down to the suffering of the human condition, or the suffering within the human condition.
I swear to God, he said he wasn't going to open with this.
No, we talked about this.
You said you were going to...
I'm a mother.
What happened to the transition?
You were going to...
There is no transition.
You were going to preheat the oven before you slammed the turkey in.
Yeah.
You've been talking for 15 minutes. That's the preheat the oven. We've already done that. You've already tossed items at your wife, and
we talked about the tube.
Did we talk about the nude McRib?
We talked about pig flesh.
Okay.
We talked about all kinds.
Well,
of
we've broached suffering since the McRib came into the
conversation.
I was about to say, when you say suffering, to me that's such a broad term. I don't think it's something that will ever go away, because I almost think that there is a part, since it is a part of the human condition, I don't think people necessarily even want it to go away to an extent. I think people want it controlled, because I do think with suffering comes some enlightenment, and it opens the psyche a little bit, and there's different ways of suffering. So I think there's definitely a lot to that. It's very broad. Very broad.
Mm-hmm.
I just think of
you suck.
I think of Pinhead
from
the
Hellraiser.
Yeah, from Hellraiser. That was his favorite line. The sweet suffering. You don't remember that? Am I the only Hellraiser fan?
I've seen
here?
that movie since like high school, I think.
I remember.
I never watched it.
Wasn't there a guy on MTV called Matt Pinhead, or was there a
Pinfield.
Pinhead or something?
Pinfield.
Matt Pinfield.
Well, you just destroyed his legacy.
I know.
Oh, speaking of, before I forget, it's a little side, very small side. One of the funniest things I've seen in a long time, which I had seen live, I had forgotten about, was Matt Pinfield was a VJ, right? And around that same time, there was an MTV series called 120 Minutes.
Yeah,
it was about alternate music. Do you remember that?
Yes.
One of the VJs there, and I wish I could remember his name, he had a normal-looking hairdo, kind of like, do you remember that era? Throw me some names. VJs.
Kurt Loder?
Not Kurt Loder. Not as famous as Kurt Loder. One of the other ones.
Was
That's
he the
the
one that
only
went
one I
on to
remember.
TMZ? Remember there was the one that like...
That is the only one I remember. Is Kurt Loder.
Oh, gosh. Anyways.
It wasn't Carson Daly?
No, that's a good guess, but no, and it wasn't the guy that had the Headbangers Ball, Ricky Rackman. It wasn't Ricky Rackman. It was the guy, and I think he was the initial VJ who spearheaded this 120 Minutes, which I think came like in 88 or 89. Okay. There's a video clip of good old Johnny Rotten being interviewed by this guy, and Rotten looks at him peculiarly and goes, "You're wearing a wig." And he does it on live at Universal Studios or something at Disney, and it's like, it's one of the greatest pieces of television you will ever see. I challenge you to go watch it. It's on YouTube. he basically calls out this VJ live that he's got a toupee, which and this guy's very much into his look. You can tell, like, it was one of the most best pieces of live television I've
How
ever
did he
seen
react?
in my life.
Yeah, what did he say?
And it wasn't great. Yeah, he almost, it was cringeworthy, but it was so good.
Yeah.
You got to see it. That's the whole, when you said Pinhead.
That sounds so painful. Like,
I was about to say.
What is his name now? Oh my God, that's so good. You got
wearing a wig.
Yeah, exactly. And he started laughing as he says it. He tries to grab it and like pull on it. It's unbelievable.
That's assault.
You need to go watch
Fuck
it.
somebody.
well, because we were talking last night about like what would you do for $5,000?
Or touch it. I don't know what he was doing. He was doing something.
And I was saying, so it was, we'll leave out the names, but will someone shave a beard for $5,000? And I was like, I'd shave my head for $5,000.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like,
me too.
It's significant. I was like, $2,000, no, $5,000, yeah.
See,
What would
and I
you
don't
do?
like stuff like that though, because like I feel like besides the physical thing of him trying to like pull off this wig, like because for a while there were like the YouTube videos of people going around like cutting off man buns and stuff.
Oh, right.
And
I
I was
didn't
like,
know that. I've
yo,
never
I
seen
was
that.
like,
Yeah,
that's
it was a
as
thing.
bad as spitting on somebody. You should be in jail.
I agree.
But
really,
like,
I mean,
he would never get away with that
people should
now
stop
because
doing
I thought
them.
they were really funny.
I know, I do too.
I watched them all the time.
And you got to go watch this clip. This clip is good.
I do feel like
This clip
men
is
should
good.
stop wearing the man buns, to be fair, but
yeah.
Personal
But
preference.
you also like never really know what people are going through, and I have known.
that is 100% what I think if I see someone wearing
The
a man bun.
period.
But even like,
It's like I was drinking a lot and I didn't get dressed in the morning.
But I've known like guys to wear toupees and stuff because they got sick and they just didn't want people to know they were sick, so they were trying to look like themselves. I'm sure it was a different thing, but I just think it's something. That's probably why it was so. Out of the ordinary.
Well, we used to
because
laugh at things that we weren't. Yeah, we weren't. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying there was an era where we were more. What are you doing to my mic over there, dude?
I'm not sure. I'm figuring this thing out. I'm getting comfortable over here.
Do you know what's even funnier than that? I don't know if you guys remember Matt Pinfield.
Yeah.
How there was that contest to find MTV's next VJ, and he actually came in second. But the guy who came in first was such a different person.
Such a
What was his name? Who was it?
Jesse. His name was Jesse. Remember, he had the big like Liberty spike hair, and he was like real. Oh my God, it was so funny. And he ended up coming in first. There was a contest for MTV's next VJ, and Matt actually made it to the second runner-up.
Okay.
But he also, like the other guy, like couldn't. There's no way he could be a VJ. People liked him. He was a nice guy. He was likable.
How did he win?
I guess by votes or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, people are stupid. You can't always let people vote on things.
So it's
I
funny.
would say
That sums it all up.
So it's
That was the
funny
turning
'cause-
point in America where they were like, wait a
Wait a
second. This democracy is a great idea, but
So this Jesse like slowly faded off and you never saw him again, but Matt Pinfield was getting all these jobs because he actually could do the job. But that guy was hilarious. I mean, he wore these big like he was tall, beanpole guy, Liberty spikes. He was in a band. He had like scarves hanging all off of him and stuff like that. He could barely speak English. He was like hey man, like he was real like
like an Aussie.
he was just very there was definitely maybe some substance use there. And and then you had, and I'm sure Matt Pinfield, who handled everything with so much grace, was probably like, I can't believe I lost this job to this person. But then he did end up, you saw Matt Pinfield after that. You didn't see Jesse much after that. But I remember that contest because I followed it very... I remember at one point they all had, every contestant had to interview Kathy Griffith.
Kathy Griffith, the comedian?
The comedian.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
And so for every VJ that was going to interview her, she put on some sort of like facade, like either like she we'd either act really tired, like she was falling asleep during the interview. She would test them somehow. So this Jesse, who was, he was goofball, but he was like the nicest guy ever. She's like, when this guy comes out, I'm just going to act like a royal bitch. And so then she just tortured this poor guy. And he was like, are you okay? Like, he was just so distraught that this woman was being so mean to him. And then she couldn't even keep it up because he was like so sweet. She was like, I'm sorry, Jesse.
Aw.
But I just remember that was probably how many years ago? Because you figure Matt Pinfield.
So he was on as a guest on someone's podcast I was listening to recently. No, within the past year.
Kevin
sorry.
Seal.
Who?
Kevin Seal was the VJ.
Oh, I remember that name.
I don't. No.
I don't remember
What's
what
he
it
look
but
like? I
that
probably
name.
remember him to see him.
No, I know this was like common term back in the 90s, but it's fallen out of use. And every time you say VJ, I just think like,
The JJ.
yeah,
I
it sounds derogatory.
Oh, yeah.
I can't stand that.
And
I
like,
can't stand that guy.
The
He's,
machine.
he's such a VJ.
Wait, the machine was from Borat, right?
No,
I don't
but
remember.
something like that. I think it was like a real dude who was sort of a Borat guy.
The Vagine.
Bob's and Vagine.
Bob's and Vagine. Show Bob's.
Is that not?
Oh my
Yeah,
god! Oh
that's
my
it.
god!
Yeah. That wasn't from the show. That was a real guy.
That's the other thing too, and that like people tried to like coin the term vlogger, and I feel like that
Yeah.
has the same connotation. When I
Yeah.
hear vlogger, I'm just like, I just think of
That was Kevin Seal. Remember Kevin Seal?
Let me see what he
120 minutes. I think he was only on for a year, and that interview had lied and might have ended his VJ career at
Wow.
120 minutes.
I don't remember him.
Let me see.
Kevin Seals.
So that's a toupee he's got
Let me
going
see.
on.
I believe so. Yeah. Don't quote me. It was just
It was an
Oh, wait.
observation.
That was
Wait,
an
should we go around the
observation.
side?
Yeah.
I think that was old
Can't
Johnny's
break-
observation.
Send it through the tube.
Yeah, the tube would have been really helpful right about now.
I'll try to screenshot this for this show.
Oh.
He looks like a VJ.
Kevin Seal. You don't remember him?
No.
He was a little different. I keep forgetting that I'm older than you folks. I've got
Yeah,
a decade
I
on
think
here,
this
so
might, like, because in '88, like, I wouldn't have been watching.
I think in '86 was the first year of 100. I think, believe it or not, alternative 120 minutes started. I think in '86.
He looks like a total VJ.
He looked like a toad. Yeah, it was.
Oh man,
How do we get?
I know.
How do we get from suffering?
know.
How do we get the
Well,
Kevin
I'm
Seal?
suffering now.
How do we get here?
Dude, that guy suffered. He got his toupee called out on live television.
Talk about suffering. Well, okay,
I
so
should not have brought all these Reese's Pieces.
I know that was
You want some of
it was
these?
really an aggressive purchase.
An aggressive.
They didn't
purchase.
have the normal size.
Does
I
he do
know.
anything that's not aggressive?
No, no, you should see the stuff comes out of his pockets. It suffers.
We call him the candy man because he always seems to have candy on him, and he'll be like, anybody want a lollipop? And then he has some for the whole room. We're like, where'd
Oh,
this come from?
nice.
When we were in
Nice.
high school, he used to carry healthier snacks around because his mom packed him. So like, it would be like an
Now I can buy what I want.
I know.
That's some
I know.
funny shit
So
right
it would
there.
be like, well, you know what though? I feel like you made your own choices though, because you definitely like would always have an apple and a paring knife. That was like one of the things. Like he would like carry. He would wear this big long trench
And a
coat.
trench coat. You didn't know what the hell was
And
in
so,
there.
like, he'd pull out an
was
apple, and then
tons of
he'd
shit
pull
in
out a paring knife, and he'd just start like cutting the apple. And this is,
Oh,
you know,
that's
what
fantastic.
you wonder how I felt for him.
That is fantastic. That is
I didn't have a
fantastic.
chance.
Him whittling down this apple.
I know. Oh my god! And then it was like the one day it would be, every morning he would have these like egg scramblers. They were like toaster
Like those little egg beater
toaster-
things.
Dude, you never knew what was
they were
coming out of
like-
that coat.
They were like Hot Pockets with eggs in
You
them.
never knew what was coming out of that coat.
Or like apple strudels, or like.
Oh, I love toaster strudels. Those
Yeah,
are,
those ones. Yeah, those.
Those are my
Nothing
faves.
beat one time I was just hanging out. Remember the church? We used to hang out at this church all the time, just in the parking lot. We never attended this church. And these kids were throwing fireworks, like little firecrackers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the kids like,
Like
oh.
snaps or literal
No,
fire?
like actual fire. Not
Okay.
like fireworks, but firecrackers.
Little like, yeah.
Okay.
And the one kid comes over and he's like, oh man, the wick got screwed up. He's like, hey, you got a knife? Oh my I'm sitting there in my trench coat. I'm like, and I wasn't even being a jerk. I wasn't trying to like be cool. Like, yeah, I got a knife, kid. I was just like, yeah, I got a knife. and I pull a full-size machete out of the coat. It wasn't even all the way out, and the kid's like, I don't want it. Never mind.
He's like, I thought you had a pocket knife.
I was kind of like, oh, sorry.
So
Is this
polite
not-
about it.
Is this not okay?
This won't work? Or?
You didn't specify.
Oh,
He was worried
man.
about suffering.
Yeah.
Eric.
Probably.
You're going to make him suffer.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay, so to tie it back to what you're saying,
Let's try and get this back on track.
see if I can get back on the rails here.
Let's try and get this back on track.
I think one of the things that I'm seeing as far, because like here's the thing, is like preventing suffering. I mean, like we've had these like talks about like, you know, procedures you had when you were younger with like your finger getting slammed. You know, like those kinds of like prevent like anesthetics.
I forgot about that.
I just listened
Or
to that when you were
anesthesia or whatever, you know,
about
like
that.
if you like, I go to like sedation dentist now because I don't want to suffer through dental appointments anymore because I've done it
You
enough.
wuss.
Fuck, I don't care what you say, man. It is so nice. Like I've never had a root canal awake. Okay, like
Yeah.
I had to have my first root canal, and I went in and I popped some pills before I went in there, and I popped one more when I got there, and then I slept for about 2 or 3. It was a long ass procedure, and I slept for about 2 or 3 hours. Jerry's mom drove me home, and then I was done. And when I went back to like have them touch it up,
Yeah.
they gave me something just to keep me calm.
Yeah.
So I didn't like completely pass out, but I don't really remember most of it. And that kind of elimination of suffering, I was freaking traumatized by dentist appointments from like the time I was like, a
Yeah.
kid until
Yeah.
I was in my 20s.
It was
Which
great.
we've talked about that with you being at the dentist. So
Yeah.
I think
So that kind of suffering, yeah, bring it on.
Hold
like,
on, wait. She
what?
forgot to take her dose on time.
Oh, this was like way when I was like
Wait,
still
what?
partying.
Well, they give you the dose.
This was when I had my.
It's like a loading dose.
It
with
was like my
pills,
wisdom
right?
teeth.
And
So,
she was
like-
supposed to take it like 8 in the morning. She slept through it. She's like, oh shit, I'm supposed to take these pills and these pills.
So I called them and they just told me to take them all at one time because I had slept through the initial thing.
Yes.
What could go wrong? What could go
yeah.
wrong?
So like.
And then they gave her
What
some
could go
kind of
wrong?
liquid
They
shit
give you
when
like
she
liquid
get.
Valium when you get there because this is like when you would go to get like your wisdom teeth out in an actual office.
She
Like if
came
you're
home-
getting knocked out, they'll do it by an IV, and if it's like surgery.
Oh,
But if
God.
you're doing it in the office or whatever, they just give you stuff to like.
you got to dose
Knock you
yourself.
She came home
Pretty much.
wasted. Wasted. And we used to party. So me saying for that time period she was wasted.
I was
She was
fucked up.
wasted.
She was She was
I remember, and this is the
No,
fucked
you
up
don't.
thing. No, I remember super briefly.
remember that.
because
Oh, shit.
No, like
don't.
I walked in. No, that's the thing is like the second time I did it was after I was sober and I was conscious. Like I was conscientious enough to set my alarm and take them as I was prescribed.
Okay.
But the way that they're supposed to be taken, you like. It like slowly knocks you out, and when you walk in the office you're still lucid enough that you can take the last dose, but as soon as you take that last dose you're out. The problem was that since the first time I didn't do it right, I was still kind of awake when I walked in the office, and I was kind of in and out when they were sitting me down, and then I didn't wake up, but I was like semi-aware of them working on me, but I couldn't feel or do anything. I remember like pressure and my head kind of moving around, and then I was awake enough to tell them that I wanted to keep my teeth when they showed them to me because they pulled out my 2 wisdom
They're
teeth.
like, here's your
and
wisdom teeth. She's like, I'm gonna keep it.
and I found them in my pocket later. They were in my pocket wrapped up in like
Oh my God.
like hours later when I woke up to smoke a bowl with Jerry after I was like ready to wake up finally.
Yeah, before that point, she comes in. She's just like, my mother's trying to corral her, and she's like, Julie, car's this way. And she's like, So we get her home.
What's a car?
And she's just like totally out of it. And my mother can tell. My mother, registered nurse, she's like, oh, I can tell she's still got some cotton in her mouth, so I got to get it out of there. You know what I mean? She's like, Julie, wait, come here. They didn't get all the cotton out of your mouth. Julie, come here. Julie, where's the cotton? Julie, where's the cotton? She's like, it's in the cupboard.
Pointing into the other room.
Pointing to the cotton balls that we had in the closet.
All that to say, yeah, I think that
She was not suffering that
I was
day.
not suffering, and like I think that kind of not suffering is pretty good. I mean, like you don't need to be medically traumatized or
But you were before this.
exactly.
Like
and
if you had never, if you feel, I feel like if you had never,
I wouldn't know any better anyway.
right.
Yeah, and I mean maybe there's a lesson to be learned in that. I think what I'm seeing more now, though, is that people are trying to eliminate like emotional and psychological suffering,
Right.
and I think that is causing more of a disconnect for people, because I think that's part of what does, bring you through to like who you really are, and like kind of like sharpens your soul, so to speak, or whatever. But like
physical suffering, I panic. I've been through enough of that I'm like, I don't want to. But like, I think psychological and emotional stress and suffering, I think there's some benefit to that maybe people just don't want to get. I think if you sit with something long enough, you can get past suffering from that particular thing again. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, like you said, I think people are avoiding that more. And so it almost makes you wonder, what will we do without? What will we do without certain drugs that we have? What will we do without certain... At the end of the day, sometimes you have to think about that you are on your own. And how would you be and how would you handle life without these aids?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I again, it's an age thing too. So when I look at the world today, it seems like there's a lot of people out in the world that are not okay with what I deemed when I was a younger person to be normal suffering or normal obstacles in life. I think today there's a pushback against some things that were just part of living. I don't know. It doesn't mean that we were harder and tougher then. It wasn't really about the emotional component. I'm just saying from a practicality standpoint, there's an expectation, it seems like, from people that they don't want hardship in their life, or if they get some, it gotta be somebody's fault because it's not mine. I'm not going to take responsibility for it. I'm going to look elsewhere to either for help or put blame on somebody. It's shifting a little bit. And it's a long, wide-based discussion, but the suffering part of it, like is suffering like pain, or is suffering obstacles? Like, how do we want to talk about that? Like, to me, I'm talking more on the pain front, like things that are causing you distress or discomfort, that kind of stuff. Because we can open it up to being causing you, it can be obstacles in your life.
I think that's more like adversity, and adversity is not necessarily suffering.
Although, what about the
can cause suffering?
What about the people who cannot delineate between those?
Well, before we get all down that rabbit hole, you alluded to something that I was thinking about while we were kicking this around, is that I think there's a difference between healthy suffering and unhealthy suffering.
True, yeah.
But, and I don't know, I think we always get not hung up, but we always get into semantics when we're talking about this. Like, ooh, what is happiness? Is it a hamburger? Is it life's fulfillment?
He always goes to food. You ever notice that?
I like food. As long as you feed me, you won't suffer.
He keeps coming back.
I won't be suffering.
There's food on the table.
And neither will you.
And neither will you. But I think I heard a phrase. It was like, pain is part of life. Suffering is optional.
Ooh.
True. Keeping that pain around. And I think, too, with what you were explaining, too, and I think the whole thing, and especially like with age and getting to this point in my life where I'm seeing a lot of younger people taking positions that I took at that age, and like what they're going through, and remembering being in that position, and also having peers that are in that position. There's a slippery slope of people being like, well, I had to go through it, so you have to go through it. And
right, I agree.
And yeah, there's definitely parents, leaders, people, me being one of them, that I feel like sometimes if I went through something and I see somebody else about to go through it, I don't want to see them go through it. So maybe I'm not doing them a favor by sparing them.
Can you really, though?
No, you can sometimes save them the obstacle. You can't really save them. They make their own choices. But I think a lot of parents will do that. Like, I went through this, so I don't want my kid to have to go through that. That was hard on me. And maybe it will shape and form your... Yeah. And I think sometimes it will shape and form your kid in a
Depends
different
on
way.
what it is, though, right? I mean, because like
absolutely.
Yeah, right. If you want to let your kid make their own mistake and then end up in a spot where it's like, oh, they really learned a lesson here. Maybe don't do that with heroin.
Right. Like this, and like I said,
Yeah.
and it's a slippery slope going the other way. There has to be some sort of happy medium where people get this like indignance of like, well, I went through it, so they have to go through it. I'm going to make them
that
suffer.
sounds sophisticated.
That reminds
thinking
me of
to
like the
that's how-
bullying thing. You know what I mean? Like how like
Yeah.
there was a big campaign about bullying, which like especially because
It's
of
gotten out of hand.
yeah, and because of online culture, it's like kids don't get away from it. They don't get a break.
It's
like,
gotten out of hand.
and I think that's like one thing that's really been like a positive kind of like attempt at decreasing a certain type of suffering but the same then it like you have like the other extreme of that, which is like safe spaces, and you know what I mean, like this whole culture of like very I don't want to say soft, but kind, you know what I mean? Like a generation of people that maybe have never had to face any adversity. And I don't think that's fair. Like, I don't want to like, I'm not trying to like say that like there's a whole generation of people that like hasn't had to like overcome any adversity.
Right.
Or endure any suffering. But I do think that like there's a way to kind of like find a balance with that kind of stuff, because I think that I don't think there was
100%.
enough oversight when it came to bullying for a long time.
Don't
Like
you-
I think the kids were just really like left to their own devices, and kids, like you have to realize, I think in
kids
some
can be
ways,
cruel.
Oh,
not
they're
just
little
that,
fucking
they're
assholes.
like they're not developed people yet. Because
No.
think of how many people you meet. Like I knew girls that were just like, oh man, they were just bitches. Like they were just so nasty.
Yep. So
And then, like,
mean-spirited.
And then like I met them later, or I ran into them at jobs that I had later or whatever, and they were just normal people. You know what I mean?
And
like
you realize they
Yeah.
did that for a reason too. It's not I think because with getting bullied as bad as I did, I really had to grow up and like learn forgiveness and not take that down a route of just being resentful and taking it to a bad place. You do have to forgive people that wrong you, because for one thing, they don't owe you anything anyway. And for another thing, especially children or young adults, if they're bullying, it's for a reason. It's that's not a normal social characteristic.
I
There's
agree.
something going on. And it's like you said too, I think there's like I feel like I stick up for youth a lot now, because you hear this like vapid, obtuse like thinking of like,
You keep using the big words, you're gonna lose me.
She's up in the game, so
There's no doubt, man. I'm like,
get out your thesaurus.
I'm starting to feel very small over here.
it's very like tunnely vision type one-way
Then she
thinking.
comes back with the word tunnely and just ruins the whole
Tunnely
thing.
vision.
she's helping you catch up.
Tunnely.
I no doubt.
I have to sound that out too.
She's throwing you a lifeline.
Somebody's got to. You buried me the first half of the show, so
Oh my god.
Where I feel like they're like, oh, kids are so soft nowadays and kids don't have it hard, but it's different to be a
no
kid
doubt,
nowadays.
no doubt.
It's, for one thing, I just think even physically and psychologically, they're wired different than we were. So
It's the 5G.
Yeah.
It is in their
Yeah.
brains, yo.
Right. They are. There's like an anxiety wired in them, because their whole life is this room. Everything's
Yeah.
lights
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. And like, and there's,
That's a great metaphor.
You're right.
Their whole life is
this room is kind of like the
flashing lights.
teenage experience.
lights and apps and games and
right,
videos.
Right. They come out of the womb and it's like this.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't like that for a lot of us growing up. And just even the things they eat, everything's
We had a
produced
light bright.
differently. Everything.
I know, that was like
Light
the
bright.
extent of it.
That was my smartphone with a light bright.
And if you weren't careful, you'd step on those little pieces and hurt your feet.
Oh my God. And then there's still a light bright at the mattress factory. You walk through that one dark exhibit and there's like a light bright in there. And I was like, is that construction paper or is that just permanent? But yeah, I feel like people are like, kids just have it so easy nowadays. And I'm like, they have it different.
Yeah.
So there are things, they possibly can't handle that we could, or generations above us could. But that's just, I feel like this generation's louder about it.
I would not
You
want to
know?
handle what they're handling, honestly.
No,
like
no.
I'll take the suffering that I had and like the bullying and kind of like the harsh.
I think every generation says that. They really shouldn't think about that, right?
Yeah, but I think that's
they don't
because,
understand the current generation.
And I think that's also because like that's what you're made for almost. Like it's like how they talk about like generation, like different,
I'm with you.
Whatever.
I think we were transplanted into the digital age. We grew up in the dirt. We had roots in the dirt, and we were transplanted into the digital age.
And it gives us perspective, I think.
Yeah.
A different kind of perspective.
But they had digital roots in the digital dirt.
Yeah.
They weren't transplanted into the digital age. And so, like, I feel like we have people, our generation and older, have these, like, roots in what I'd call the real world. And I don't know if a lot of young people do, just because they're raised on screens from the time they're before they're 2 years old, like from the time they're born. Like a 2-year-old will know how to do things on a phone that the adult doesn't know how to do, and that's the thing. Like when you're that
and
young,
aren't scared to do.
When you're that young, you're like they say the best time to teach somebody a new language is like before,
when they're babies,
before 10,
basically,
because your brain is just able to learn so much more quickly.
But
that's the thing, like
4 and 5.
That means that everything that you're exposed to, like, you absorb so much more of it, and it's so much more influential. And so for me to get America Online when I was like 13, 14 years old, like, you know what I mean? The weird Atari noises, and I'm waiting for like 15 minutes to get on the internet. Like,
Dude,
my
I got
parents
that when I was
tying up the phone line. My dad can't make any telephone calls. All he hears is
and I did that at 30. And I felt the same way as a 16-year-old. I was like, this is the greatest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. All the answers to every imaginable thing in my brain, I can go out and grab.
It was super exciting for us.
And think of how fast it's gone since then. Things used to change so slowly, and now it's like every couple of years there is something super advanced. And I was saying in the other room, I'm kind of like reading back and forth 2 books right now, and one is Future Shock.
Thanks,
Jerry.
Thanks,
I
Jerry.
still haven't read it.
Fucking Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. You got me stuck on that.
I still haven't read it. You guys are gonna get all the way through it, and I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna be hearing
about it.
I'm gonna be hearing about it from you, and then seeding other people.
Be like, you got to read this.
What a lazy, half-assed philosopher, man! What the fuck?
You're doing other things.
Yeah.
But the whole concept of Future Shock is it's almost like culture shock, only it's about moving too fast and how humans aren't really made to do that. It's messing up our psyche because we're like not adapting as fast as we're not adapting easily as we think we are. Like everything is changing around us, but like our psyche and everything, and even our bodies and stuff. So the other book I'm reading, like I was saying, it was called Sapiens, and it's more about like the history of mankind, and it went over that too, just saying that what the price we pay for having an intelligent brain amongst the other animals, because when we were talking about Neanderthals and things like that, and how they would just like they were like vegetarians and they were a softer, kinder people, but like most like Homo sapiens, like they were scavengers for a long time. They believe like a lot of times they would just after a lion and the hyenas and everything would kill something, you weren't going to fight them for your food.
You just wait until what's left.
So you'd
or
go,
whatever.
so they were eating like bones and bone marrow and things like that. But then
Scavengers.
Yeah,
I
scavenging.
see that hardwired into some people I know.
Oh, yeah.
But then we learned how to use fire to cook and eat other things, and
Tools.
and
Weapons,
things like that.
spears and stuff.
Yeah,
Arrowheads.
Right. And
Transportation.
So
horses.
like a shark, a lion, they adapt to their surroundings because it happens so slow. So they're able to adapt over time and evolve over time, where we've gotten smarter than our own bodies and our own, you know what I mean? We've changed our surroundings so fast that it is kind of a shock to our system, and that's why some people are not handling it as well.
It's an example of the suffering.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah.
So, but
Cue the suffering.
But everything you have said, it keeps coming back to this same theme that I keep beating every show, and I can't help it, but I see it in life every day, and that is that a lot of the population is living and maneuvering with extreme thoughts on either sides of equations. Like we have to do this anti-bullying thing, and then there's populations that say, "Oh, it goes too far." And when I was a kid, I got my ass beaten. That's how I learned. And then you have the mothers who don't want their kids they want to wrap them in saran wrap and send them out into the world.
Helicopter parenting.
The point is, it comes back to, and you articulated it once in one of the prior shows, Jerry, better than I can even say it in how you phrase this, but everybody is living, not everybody, a good portion of the population is maneuvering in a way that their thoughts are always on the extreme, and we won't operate in the moderate viewpoint. They won't operate from moderation, knowing that things can be majority a certain way, but there's still that minority portion that's relevant to the conversation, and make a practical decision and just go about your day. So much has to be one or the other, and you got to get married to, and life is not that simple, yeah, you can't protect everybody, but no, you shouldn't throw them to the wolves. You got to find a happy medium, but that requires sophisticated thought, not ultra sophistication. You don't need to go to college for that, but you got to put a little effort into it as opposed to just running to the magnet on either side. I don't get why that's such a hard thing for humans to do today in normal life. I mean, I can tell you, before the internet age, the extremes in society were a thing that you kind of like gave the crooked eye to, like, what the fuck is that? Who would want to live like that? In thought or in association? That's a weird thing. The extremes were minority groups of thought or people that were really, quote unquote, they were fucking out there. But now the extremes are big groups of people. And the moderate people, the people that are rationally thinking about moving the world and being differential to feelings and so forth, there's not a lot of people living that way.
I think that's I don't know if that's true. I think it's just.
I hope I'm wrong.
I think it's the loudest voices are the ones that you're hearing.
Squeaky wheels get the grease.
Yeah,
and I think the media deliberately amplifies the most extreme.
Yeah, because that's
viewpoints.
That's what gets clicks. Because
there you go.
Not just that though, because the media used to be structured differently, and now the media. I don't remember. It has to do with something, and I don't understand it well enough to articulate it properly. But I know that it has to do with the way that the media sources get paid now. And so it's not so much on reporting anymore as it is on trying to earn revenue. And the things that earn revenue are things that are inflammatory. And so what you're seeing is these really extreme viewpoints, but I don't think that that's the majority. I really don't.
But we're still making the choice to, I get it, but we're still making the choice to ingest the shit we see on television, to buy into and believe it. That's reality. That's fact.
No, I don't think we're making the choice.
We have a choice.
We do have a choice, but when you're saying it takes some sophisticated thought and stuff like that, true. And the brain wants to save energy. Energy is precious, so we're just going through the motions. And so a lot of times it's so much easier what do? We turn on our TV all the time.
We need to stop that.
Yeah. So people have the TV on. What they hear is what they're automatically going to go by because they have so much other things.
It's what you start to identify with. It makes sense to you because it helps formulate the world that you live in.
That makes sense. So why would I think different? Your brain just gets kind of
the more you're
lazy.
the more you're exposed to an idea, even if it's not your idea, and even if you don't really incorporate it into your life, the more you're exposed to an idea, the more normal it becomes. Normal is just what we're used to.
They always say if you want to start a habit, you're going to go towards what's the easiest, what's the closest, and what's the mass, what's the most. So if you want somebody to start doing something, they're going to do what people around them do. They're going to do what's the easiest for them to save energy, whatever they're going to think and do whatever is easiest for them most often. And then if a lot of people are doing it, then even more so, because it's just easy to fall into this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to think. This is what I'm supposed to feel is the weirdest thing. I see people get angry over things and I'm like, are you really angry? Well, no, but I'm supposed to be. I should demand respect.
That's crazy.
And
that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are getting angry because they feel like they should be. It gives them this emotional
empowerment.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I have never felt that way. I have never felt
anger is not my default.
No, but I'm saying I've never felt I've never felt a certain way intentionally because I thought I'm supposed to feel that way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but I can get in my head too. You know, I can be like, oh, well, that just kind of happened that way. And then the voice in my head is, oh, did it? Or were they just...
they were fucking with
you. Or were
you.
they trying to fuck you? You know what I mean? And then I can get up in my head and all of a sudden,
but that's even kind of true emotion.
It's not that I felt like I was supposed to feel that way, but I got
talked myself into it in a way.
To the point
I've
where,
been there.
Yeah.
I think that there are people that are maybe just a little bit more like that run hot. You know what I mean? Maybe a little bit more. And I also think that some of like where it's coming from, where people are like kind of hyping themselves into feeling a certain way, or like telling themselves how they think they're supposed to feel, is I think there is like, you know, they used to joke about like the generation of apathy, which was kind of like around what we came up in, like in the 90s. That was like, you know, the anthem was like...
I don't care about that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care about that. But that's really, I think, contrary to like the human condition. I don't think people are meant to be apathetic, really. I think that's a byproduct of like societal like fucked upness.
And then she brings that word.
Talk about the big words.
Now just come down to my level.
Talk about the big words.
Trying to help you out, her.
All right.
But
now I got 2 lifelines.
The societal fuckery.
Yeah, but I think that's like
the unconscionable jackassery.
I love that. That's what your tagline.
That's good. I might steal that. That's good.
But I really don't think apathy is actually like a natural state for people. I think that is something that like is kind of like...
A lot of times though, it's my natural state, and I feel like people will poke and rattle my cage like, you're not mad about that? You should be mad about that. You better stick up for yourself. You better do this. You better do that.
That's not apathy though.
Hold
I
on.
don't
It
think.
could
Like,
be. Are you
that's
talking
true.
about apathy, or are you talking about serenity?
there you go. Yeah, because
Yeah,
that I
true.
think is...
I think a lot of
Do you
these
not
things...
care, or are you just at peace with whatever it is?
Right.
I just don't care.
All right, well,
I'm not necessarily
fair
at peace
enough.
a lot of the time.
Then
I
that's
mean, I'm
then
sure
we're
there
clear.
are times
That's
where I'm
apathy.
like, this doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. I'm okay with it. I've thought it out. But there's been other times where like anger or getting upset or getting sad or was not my first... It was not my default reaction to whatever, and people
Not
will be
'cause
like, well,
you're-
you should be because...
Not because
you know.
you're meditating on a mountain, just because
So-
you're
Yeah.
totally out of
No, but I think what
fucks
you
to
just
give.
said, you're onto something, because we are living in a heightened state of what you just said. Someone said, well, you should be. That is the craziest thing a human can tell another person. If you say that something doesn't bother you, or you're
Like,
not upset,
don't tell
or
me how to
you
feel.
or you don't have an opinion, because I get that a lot, because I do live a lot of my life in indifference, and I'm fucking proud of it. But when you wear that as a badge, maybe that's my badge. Maybe I wear that maybe more than I should, because I just sometimes just don't care, and I'm all right with that. You're not allowed to be all right with that. You're supposed to have an opinion. You're supposed to be emotionally charged in today's world. And I can't get there, man. It doesn't mean that I'm not passionate about stuff or I don't get angry once in a while, but I mean, I can't let someone else tell me what I'm supposed to be pissed off about. I can't do that.
And I think you touched on something important, Cassidy, too, and that sort of like leans into maybe what you're experiencing is that, you know, like we're designed to kind of conserve energy, like when we know that we only have so much energy to give. And like the one book I keep bringing
Wait
up
till
is...
you get older.
Well, so I'm reading this like, what do I keep talking about? It's the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
Yeah, I read it.
And I'm not through it yet. I've been, I don't know, maybe like the first half-ish.
I would love to hear when you're done your review of that, because I did not find it worth the read. But
Okay.
I read it
Interesting.
and it was okay. I did like it. It was comical. Like it was...
Yeah, I mean it's kind of silly, and like, but I feel like the one thing that kind of like resonates with what you're saying though is it talks about how like, you know, you don't have an infinite amount of fucks to give. You know what I mean? Like you can't just like be giving, you know, you can't just give a fuck about everything. So you kind of have to be selective about what you give a fuck about. Then I think a lot of people end up like spending all
Jesus
of their
did.
energy on things that, you know, maybe aren't worth it. And those are the things that you're kind of like seeing, is that people are like getting hyped up into caring about things that maybe they don't actually care about, or I don't want to say shouldn't, but that maybe isn't like worth their energy. And then when something comes along that's actually worthwhile, they're like tapped. They don't have the energy.
It's
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
our receptors are getting burnt out
Yeah.
on all this stuff that we're polarized about, and the media and all the things that we get worked up about, you know, like you run into somebody right away, they're just like, oh man, did you see the blah blah blah, and you see what they're doing now with the bathrooms. It's just like,
And
and that's the
I
shit
think
that drives me crazy. Like what you just
Did you hear what they're doing with the
is
bathrooms?
So much,
I'm just like,
it's so much of like
you're not allowed to go to the bathroom in there anymore.
Okay, so you have clients to come in and see you. You have clients to come and see you. You're out maneuvering, meeting people, internal customers in your business and out external. So we're all meeting people on a daily basis.
Doing a lot of networking.
It drives me nuts when I meet people and the first conversation, or the first
thing
they
out of
say
their mouths.
to you,
Yep.
well, I expect it to be negative because generally it's always been negative my whole life. Negativity's always led, for all the years I've been on this earth, that's been my observation. That doesn't surprise me. But it's how vehemently angry, like some people have they're leading not with negativity, because usually it was passive negativity. Now it seems like they're angry. Like there's the default reaction is to take the issue and get it charged up about it, like from the get-go. And they think that they're going to be what they're going to receive from you is either agreement, affirmation, or the same amount of emotional energy.
Yeah.
And when I don't give either, then you look at them deadpan, they just, and it's the best way to diffuse it is just give them nothing. But I'm just amazed at how emotionally charged people are from the get-go.
Well, and I've been feeling that a lot. I think that's why I just recently shared that, was it Ernest Hemingway on social media, that quote that says, being against evil doesn't make you good. And that's what we're seeing a lot of now, is that people are thinking, if I'm emotionally charged and mad at this person because I don't believe in what they're doing, it's going to make me look good. And even, we talk about the media, and I blame the media a lot, all the time. They're one of the biggest factors.
The media is garbage.
And with some of the biggest things that are going on in the media, like some of the biggest trials and things that are going on right now, the media has been so terrible about lying about parts of it and dividing people in this issue. And there are so many people that worry about other people breaking the law when they're breaking the law themselves. And that bothers me so much. I'm like, you're so worried about, and even like, not to bring up a bunch of things that are in the, but right now, one of the big things that was in the news was a young man that I really think in his heart of hearts, he thinks he's a good guy and did a good thing. And then there's other people that think he didn't. And then there's people that think he did. Yes. And, there's no middle ground there. And the media has lied about all this so much. And the thing that bothers me most about the case is not so much things that really have nothing to do with it, because there was a lot of lies going on about what happened and things like that. But, like there's so many people that want to be a good guy and they do bad things to be a good guy. I know way too many people. Once again, I'm in Washington County. Not that has anything to do with anything.
As a precursor.
But there are so many people that want to live in the wild, wild west and go out there and shoot somebody just so they can say they did. I swear there are people that are just like raring to
Meanwhile,
go.
Cassidy's there in her cape just going,
I'm like,
not today.
And there are so many people that they think they want to be a hero. They're so ready. They're like, because that's the only, I don't know.
I just don't get that. Like, the last thing I want to do is go out in the street and fight somebody or shoot somebody. I have no compulsion to do that.
And we're talking about
I don't get it.
We're talking about other movements that they're saying that are discrediting the police. This is the shit that's discrediting the police. You are not the law. You're not trained like they are. You don't, I mean, everybody has a right to defend themselves, I believe. But there are people that put themselves into situations just so they can come out the hero, and instead they're causing issues.
Absolutely.
It's a to me, and we'll talk about it a little bit, because it fascinates me that what we have done in society, we've started to live in a way of moral equivalency, meaning that one bad thing happens, well, because this wasn't prosecuted correctly, or because a mistake was made in this, that this other stuff that these people are doing are okay. And then because that's okay, then that gets responded with something else. And all of these things are bad and not good for society, but we're kind of letting tit for tat go and keep the train of tit for tat going, and it's out of fucking hand. Listen, a lot of bad stuff has been going on in this country for a long time, and it's egregious shit. I mean, racism is the scourge, probably one of the single worst scourges on the planet, but especially in our country. However, in response to racism, the moral equivalency does not work, because you can't give a pass to people protesting one bad thing and they go and do a bunch of bad shit. You can't burn a fucking person's business down because you're mad about someone else's injustice. Now you got two wrongs, you got two people dead, you got a lot of problems here. And then you can't take vigilante justice and go after the protester, burn the building down with a gun, and you're now causing a crime. It's terribly dumb, and it's terribly stupid, and you don't have the right in society from a legal standpoint to take a moral equivalency equation and apply it to your life, because guess what? You're gonna fucking hurt people, and you should be punished for that.
But that is what the media is doing. That is all that the media
does.
Yeah.
Both sides, no matter whether it's CNN or Fox News,
this can't continue.
It is continuing.
It can't continue.
You said exactly, like, that's it, the narrative. Like, they talk about the narrative like, oh, these people were out there, they were fighting for rights, they were doing good, or oh, these people were degenerates, they don't work, they were out there just looking to steal some stuff. Like,
extremes,
that's
Jerry.
what I mean, though. Like, the media is not reporting and going, okay, when we have all these problems, look, we have this movement here, and we have a lot of people who are out there who are trying to make a difference, and then it's turning violent, and then people are getting hurt. Like, we do not have an objective objective reporting, and objective look on
thoughts.
Here's what is happening in our society right now. Let's talk about the causes behind it. Let's talk about where it could go. It's look at these heroes or look at these villains. And the same with Kyle Rittenhouse. He's either a hero, he's John Wayne. I've seen memes of him as the fucking Doc Holliday from Tombstone.
Like, crazy.
He's either fucking hero like John Wayne,
or he's a murderer,
or he's a low-life piece of crap. He's entitled. He just wanted to try and hurt somebody. Like, he's a little sociopath who couldn't wait to go out and murder three people. Like, there is no in between. There's no objective look at any of this stuff.
But to solve the problem is the scales of justice, brother. And if we can't believe in that, even with its faults, someone has to make the decision. So we have a court system that makes the decision. But that's not good enough, because we can't, as a society, accept that we need to be able to process a system which makes decisions when we can't.
Yeah.
And right now, this court system is the best way we've come to solving social issues, social dilemmas of life and death. And we're basically unable to accept when it doesn't go our way.
Courts are solving legal issues. The courts can't solve social issues.
No. But I'm saying to resolve the consequences of social strife,
the legal issues.
We have to have a way of doing it, but even that's not good enough now, because now these extremes are attacking the system, the justice system that we have to solve our problems, to equate justice. They're now attacking them, saying that is even wrong. If that's the case, then it's completely broken down.
Some people are saying
it's coming from all sides.
Some people are saying it is completely broken down, and they're saying, yes, okay, the justice system is supposedly in place to make that objective judgment based on the laws that we have in place. But some people are saying, look, the legislation is broken, it's corrupt, and there's corrupt laws, and the judicial system is broken, it's corrupt, and there's not even like, oh, well, there's corrupt judges among a bunch of good ones. It's the viewpoint that, look, our country is completely broken because, and I think from a social standpoint, a lot of people are saying it's because our country is very discriminatory towards minorities. And people who look at that and see that as true, they see that as one of the biggest, what'd you say, racism is the scourge of the earth. They see that as like the forefront, one of the most important
But
issues.
that makes them blind to everything else that's going on. And I also think that if you buy into if you look at the world through a prism that only shows you racism, and everything that your life has and what you ingest on a daily basis is about racism, and every decision that you have to make during your day and the outcome is having to do with racism. If you view life through that, I'm going to guess, if you view life through any philosophy, the outcome's not going to be good. It's not going to be putting you in a position to dealing with what is actually reality.
There's a fine line with that though too, because I think people that are trying to discourage some of those type of things don't realize that. I think a lot of people will go towards, well, we do have equality now, and that not that it doesn't exist, but it doesn't exist as much as people are making it out to be, when really we've talked about this before on shows, we're just not that far removed. And we've had as white people, we've had so much more of a head start. So now that we're trying to, as a society, kind of tip the scales more to help, I think there are other people that are like, it's fine now, why are we doing that, why are we tipping the scales? And that's why, to help with the head start that we've gotten.
The disparity. No, and what I was kind of trying to angle around to was, you said, you're like, well, the courts, and I think you used it contextually, like a social interaction that resulted in somebody dying, but what I heard when you were talking was the court is now resolving the social issue, and I think that, in the true sense, is the way a lot of people see, like, our government's job is to resolve these social issues. And I'm sorry, not only are they failing miserably at trying, but that is simply not. No more is it the government's job to legislate. I'm not saying like equality as far as treating everyone fairly and anti-discrimination laws. That's very important, but going in and saying, okay, as the government, we're now going to eliminate the problem of racism. No, the fuck you are not.
Right.
You cannot the government cannot
society.
even handle the basic responsibilities with which they are charged.
So is racism a moral problem?
I think it's like a
social problem.
I think
is
it's
a justice problem?
I think it's a social disease, and the same way that people are like, oh look, religion's going to try, the right's going to come by and trying to legislate religious dogma. The left can't attempt to legislate people loving and respecting and accepting one another. You cannot do that from the government to the community. It is not going to work, and it hasn't worked.
But
and
that's a philosophy of government that this country is struggling with and has been for decades.
Yeah.
It's called liberalism and conservatism, and generally, in the purest sense, which is not representative today by the parties, in the purest sense of it, you have a small government, big government philosophy. The bigger the government, the more cradle to grave, the more social engineering. That's their belief. Conservatism, smaller government, maybe a more Christian way of thinking in terms of taking Christian values and putting that into society. Smaller government and letting free enterprise and the families construct your society. I'm not making a decision.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're giving an overview. But
that's going on for a couple hundred years since we started this country. That those two schools of thought and different kind of amalgamations and different kind of political parties, that school of thought has always been there, and it's always going to be there. That's the big left and right debate.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, sometimes the Republicans are more right than left, and sometimes the Democrats are more right than left. I can't tell you what party does what exactly, but
couldn't tell you either.
Yeah, but I'm saying amongst all of that is the justice system. They really can't worry about a political philosophy. You see what I'm trying to say? Are we dealing with such the extremes today that even the justice system that keeps order and safety and hopefully security of our way of life, if we're attacking that, if that's the last bastion that we can't even keep that sacred, right? We're going to attack the justice system as being corrupt and wrong, and we're not going to abide by their rules that we create, that system, then we're fucked. We're totally fucked.
I will play devil's advocate because people who believe that we have a completely racist system are going to say you have to go against the justice system because the justice system isn't really serving justice. Not saying that that's the way I look at it, but for someone who says, look, I am attacking that last bastion of justice because the justice system has proven time and time again that they're not serving justice. Like, I can look at that and say, okay, if you believe that, you have a valid point. My problem, right where we're at and everything that we're seeing right now, because we came here with the Rittenhouse case.
Yeah.
The court's job is to determine in this instance, was the law broken, and if it was, does someone need to be punished for it? Now, they've made their determination. Like, whether you agree with what they did or not, they're ruling, okay, whatever. But when these cases come up, the judge and the jury, they're going to make a decision that determines a big deal for like a few people that were involved, right? You know what I mean? Obviously the defendant, like whether he's going to go to jail, whether the rest of his life is going to be changed. People who were close to those who lost their lives in the incident, whether they feel that justice was done. But other than that, like the rest of the country, like, okay, we made the judge and the jury, the justice system handed down this verdict. Now, the direct, like, the consequences of this are for a relative few. The greater consequence is the narrative that comes out of this
by
and the fucking media that has, like I said, like it's either Black Lives Matters protesters, they're either the chosen defenders of social justice, or they are criminals, they are pieces of garbage, they don't have jobs. Like, there's no, like, hey, people are angry, and now they're taking to the streets, and destructive things are happening.
There's no pragmatic
take an
evaluation.
Objective look at the fact that we have some kind of problem that has caused people to literally take to the streets, and now that we have violence, we have destruction. Like, you either look at that like, look, we have a bunch of people who couldn't wait for the opportunity to get out there and hurt something and steal stuff from the gas station and loot Best Buy, or you have someone who looks at it and says, look, these people, they are finally free. They are finally serving justice. They are finally out there doing what people haven't had the guts to do for years, what people haven't had the guts to do since the 60s. Like, they're either heroes or they're villains. They're angels or they're demons. It's the same thing with Rittenhouse. He's either a fucking hero or he's a fucking murderer. There's no objective look. It's like, the adults aren't in charge here.
Yeah, the monkeys are running.
And here's
the
the
zoo.
thing, and this, I want to like just kind of like jump in here real quick. I didn't contribute a lot to the Rittenhouse discussion because I actually had to like bone up on the
Bone.
Here we go.
Bone up.
the child.
Here we are. Here we go.
I dropped the cap to my water. What the hell are you doing over there?
I don't know. She don't know.
I had to like I didn't follow the stories super like a lot until just recently. I like did like I did a quick like recap just so that I knew what was actually going on in the media when I was seeing all this stuff.
Yeah, because if you didn't watch the trial, the media like made it out to be
Which is me. I didn't watch the trial.
But this is kind of what I'm coming back to is that one of the things that, and this came up on one of the shows, I don't remember which one, but we were talking about all it would take to like infiltrate the American way of thought would be basically to kind of like, or all it would take for like essentially like a communist takeover to happen. And I know this is going to get real like conspiratorial or whatever.
That's what we do here.
But all it would take would be for our way of life and our system of democracy to be questioned. And the best way to do that would be through the media. And basically like the only way, like the easiest way to like kind of like destabilize a society is to destabilize the way that we view ourselves and the way that we see the world and the way we see each other and the way that we see, things like this, these important cases, important elections, all these things. And whether what is happening is actually happening or not, whether there was an injustice or not, whether there was, ballot tampering or not, whether any of the things that have been portrayed in the media and discussed in the media actually happened or not, the fact that so many people mistrust our way of life now and basically don't see it as, basically people that just don't have any faith in democracy. That's all it really takes for society to destabilize. And whether it was a communist entity or, just any outside entity, doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It matters. But like any whether it was someone from the inside or someone from the outside or any, one someone or any number of someones that basically wanted to have our media portray things in such a way that we were constantly at odds, constantly fighting with each other, constantly getting really fired up about things that may or may not have taken place the way that they do, or the way that they did. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not saying that the particulars of any one situation aren't important. They are. But I think that the way it's being presented to us is intentional. And I don't think that there is...
It's a distraction.
And I don't think that... I think that the fact that we don't have objective reporting on anything anymore is not at all by accident. And I think that's the more important issue in all these things.
You been listening to that Joe Rogan again?
No.
What about,
yeah, I mean, I do actually. Not a lot. It's I've been kind of doing what you do. Like I sort of go through like once a week and I pick my favorite guests that he's had on, because it's a 3-hour commitment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have
we wouldn't ask anyone to do that, right?
well, I mean, he's doing shows every single day, and they're good. Like I've seen some. What's that? Goals. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You know,
Goals.
Hey, maybe this is what we'll do in the future, guys. This is all we'll do.
Never know.
Right.
Cassidy won't do hair anymore. I won't be in healthcare. Jerry won't be running ops.
Look, we just need to talk to the Nabisco people.
These Oreos are making a really prominent appearance on every one of our shows. I mean, those gas station brownies
Double
were
stuff
legit.
yourself with that
but-
Era McKenna project.
You know what? Fuck yeah.
2 episodes a day, every day.
Oreos. Fuck yeah.
maybe we...
They never leave that room. It's got a stink in there under those hot lights.
Oh my god.
Maybe we do have the same genes as pigs. You figure, like,
Yeah.
we could...
No, we haven't gone down the McRib road quite yet.
That's next. I feel like for our big reveal that we haven't discussed yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be.
Oh, no. There can be a couple of those sandwiches, but you don't need to give one to everybody.
No, I don't want a whole one. Thank you.
I don't want one at all. Thank you.
I'm good. I'm not even
Fine.
taking a
Good.
stand. I just don't like them.
No, me either.
I just had McDonald's before we
She
went
says,
on. I'm
"Won't
cool
get
with eating
6,
McDonald's.
you'll have
Yeah.
2, right?
You know
It's a
what?
big commitment.
If I can stop at 2, but if there's like 6 in front of me, I can't promise anything.
No.
Yeah.
Have you
As long
dipped
as they're
into
not
Fireball
naked.
yet?
No, I didn't open the Fireball yet.
Okay.
I think I did tap the Devil's Cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
We gotta make a note here. Need more whiskey.
I should
important
bring my own. I'm
did-
drinking Eric out of house
We
and
did
home.
talk. Well, you just drinking Freddie out of house and home.
Fred's not here. He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
I just saw like a hairball on the floor from him.
Self
by
care
the way,
is canceled. We're
His
drinking
hair-
whiskey and eating naked McRibs.
That sounds exceptional. It's not, but it sounds exceptionally crude in some way. I just
Yeah.
can't figure that out.
Yeah.
But we did start off with suffering, and we somehow
morphed into.
no, it's been great.
Yeah.
But we need to somehow. We don't have
We
to.
don't have to. I mean,
We don't know. There's no rules.
Yeah.
But
That's my hot take on this whole thing, is that I feel like because what you guys keep coming back to is the media and how this has been portrayed in the media. And like I said, not having followed the case very well up to this point, and I really didn't remember it from when it happened. I like all I was seeing was these like really polarizing like images, and I'm like, wait, what the hell is going on? And I actually asked Jerry first, and then I went and like read a couple things.
did he kill
But
anyone of color, or did he kill other white people?
White people.
It was other white people, but that's what I mean. The media had made it.
So how did it end up being this
'Cause
racial killing?
Not racial, but they were Black Lives Matter protesters.
Why?
What do you mean why? I don't know why.
That's what they were.
There were
protesting.
riots
They-
going on in Kenosha where he worked.
Yeah.
So that was
It was part of the
the thing.
protests.
And let me first say, I do not agree with what. I think what me and Jared were saying, it's a hard pill to swallow that there are people dead. And there's no legal...
Repercussions.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you watch that trial, the persecution didn't do the greatest job. Like, there was nothing to really get him on necessarily.
How about him pointing that gun around the courtroom? That was some
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
what?
shit. The prosecutor was brandishing it around.
Oh, jeez.
I think he was making a demonstration. I didn't watch that part.
Didn't
Yeah,
work.
that
That kind of nonsense didn't work out good for Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's a good idea right now.
Yeah, that was... So the kid, I mean, there were a lot of things going through the media of, he was wearing gloves, and they were saying, why would you wear gloves unless you didn't want fingerprints? Well, he was treated... He has some sort of he's 17. He has some sort of EMT training. So he went, him and his friends. It wasn't like his mom drove him across state lines. I don't know if that...
His mom drove him to the gunfight.
No, I think that lie got spread is because this kid didn't have his license and he was driving around without his license. All right, so he drove to his job in Kenosha, and then he stayed at this kid's house. He kept this gun at this kid's house, and then they went on to the riots because they decided they were going to protect and treat, and that's why he had the gloves, because he would be able to treat people. I do really think this 17-year-old in his heart of hearts doesn't have a remorse for this. He feels like he did the right thing. The problem is you're 17, you're not the police. Police are trained in de-escalation. You are not. So that is the slipperyest slope. We see things like
so
this. So
you're saying he shouldn't have been there to begin with?
Yeah. He shouldn't have been. And I mean, if the only thing there was a legal, which this was weird to me, the kid at 17 could not have a pistol, but he could have an AR-15. So I don't know, like going there with an AR-15 when you've never, the kid had, I guess he had shot it a couple of times or something like that, but like it was just an accident waiting to happen. And protecting the businesses and things like that, like I said, this is what's discrediting the police, like when we're acting like, well, we're gonna go and do it, and you're not trained in that type of thing. You're 17 years old, you're gonna act out of fear. Of course, if somebody's chasing you or coming after you, you're gonna shoot to kill. And I just feel like it was a big mess that didn't have to happen. Of course, I feel like, yes, we have the right to protect ourselves, all that. It's not that, but everybody's making it this far away from each other. Like you said, there's no middle ground. It's either like...
he's either a sociopathic killer or he's an American hero.
Yeah, like the AR-15...
Instead of just being a kid, which is basically what he is.
Do you know what's really interesting?
A kid that killed people.
Yeah.
I mean, there still needs to be...
This is like...
Yeah, that needs to be acknowledged. You're right.
Yeah, they
right.
tried kids as adults. They do that.
No,
17,
you're right. You're right.
But I do get that too.
They
I
tried
think this
15-year-olds
kid...
as adults.
You're right.
I think this kid thinks he did a good thing. I think, and that's what I mean. Like the victims, the people he killed and him, it's almost like they're a victim of all this. Like...
That's what I was going to say, is it's kind of like when you're looking at a situation like this, it's like, it's real hard to try to find, the right person in all this. And I will come back to, like, what I said before, is I do think that, like, we have, whether our justice system has traditionally ruled favorably in these kinds of cases, but that's just it, is that, like, we've set up a system on purpose, a system of your peers to review your case, and a judge to, put however it's phrased, to like rule out, or to rule an impartial, however, like, the justice thing is.
Scales of justice are blind for a purpose.
And we all know,
and maybe they're not, but at the same time, like, I feel like that's part of why I still believe in democracy. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just it, is it, like, I think that whether it's not a perfect system and the people that are in it aren't perfect, but the idea is that it is designed with a series of checks and balances, and that, we have, like you were saying, Jerry, I don't know if it was on camera or off camera, but that we're not judging on thought crimes yet. We're not judging on whether the intention was good or bad.
But they do evaluate someone's intention.
You're right. I mean, murder 1, murder 2, like, was it premeditated, all these kinds of things.
Right.
And they were trying to at this trial, but they didn't present it well. And I think that's why the judge was, like, shutting a lot of that down.
Well, I think we've been kind of going back and forth, and we're looking at a lot of different stuff. But what has occurred to me is I think there's a disconnect between those who feel, hey, system's not perfect, but it's what we got. We gotta let the process work. We gotta change the system from within. If you want to see more just laws and more just verdicts, if you want to see more justice for minorities, then you got to do it with voting power. And I honestly believe that there are, well, I don't think it's a belief, I think it's apparent, there are some people who are like, look, diplomacy has failed, it's time to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
And I think,
what does that mean?
Just burn it all down.
Well, that's fucking ridiculous.
We see which side you stand on, and that's okay. But there are some who look at it and say, look, minorities haven't had a fair shake since black people wore chains.
Well, I believe all that too.
That's what I mean.
100%.
Some people say, look, what you offer us is the illusion of justice.
Can't throw the baby out the bathwater.
What you offer us is the illusion of a system where our voice means something, where our voice matters. And we've accepted it for too long. So really, when you get right down to it, I don't believe in your show anymore. I'm not going to use my power to vote the next.
So what's the solution?
No, wait. I'm not offering a solution. I'm taking a look at the problem. I think the great divide that we have, because we obviously have a big divide, I think there are many of us who are like, hey, it's not perfect, but it's what we got, so let's try and make it work. I think some people are so jaded and so, I don't know how else to put it, so fucking over it, where whether they're comfortable talking about it or not, they really feel like, you know what, the haves have had enough for long enough.
Yeah.
And what did we say? Like 98% of the world's wealth is in the hands of 2% of the world's population. Some people are just ready to hit the reset button. And if that means people are in the streets burning down businesses, now I'm not saying I agree with it because, hey, I'm a manager. I don't want to see our business burn down and my livelihood go away. But like, some people are looking at our system and just saying, look, yeah, you defend the system, you say the process works, you say we got to hang in there and trust the justice system and trust democracy. Of course you'd say that. You're one of the haves. So many of the have-nots have been suffering and they do not have a fair shake. They do not have a real voice.
I don't fucking believe that anymore. I just don't believe that anymore. I think that we have come so far in this country with all the faults we still have that there's more opportunity in this fucking country right now for everybody if you have the incentive to try to fucking get it. And I am sorry, I will not stand by and constantly say that it's just too fucking hard to exist. We give money for people to sit on their fucking ass every day and pump out fucking kids. We encourage out-of-wed families. We encourage bad behavior. We give everything for bad behavior, and you know what we end up with? A lot of fucking problems. And then those problems self-perpetuate, and in the end, there's no solution because it's the people that aren't doing that shit who are the bad people, and the people that are causing the problem, who have taken the money and want to live a life of laziness, they are egregious somehow. I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm living in a fucked up world.
I think too, but with what Jared was saying though, it's easy for us. I don't want to discredit anybody here, but it's easy for us to say that sometimes and say like, oh, I don't agree with the looting and I would never want
looting.
Right, absolutely.
Under any circumstances.
I absolutely agree. But we also aren't in the shoes of if I were to look on the Coriopolis News and I saw somebody who looked like my son who had been killed accidentally in a whatever. This kid wasn't doing anything wrong and his face looked like my son and it was happening all the time. I can't say that I wouldn't, that's an emotional...
Well, what are you saying though? Explain what you're saying because I want to make sure I clearly understand.
Because with him saying like, there are people that just want to reset, they don't have faith anymore, and I can see where people have lost their faith because they're seeing things, you just get protective of what your family could go through, what your it's just there's a lot of and once again I do believe the media has a lot to do with that because they're presenting things in a certain way, but
you can't burn down the system because there's injustices, and that's where I think there's a part of society wants to do that.
I didn't say that it was like the best solution, but I think when all is lost for some people, they're not getting attention any other way. There are times when they're trying to do the right thing and live by the law, and then people in their community are getting killed unjustly and things like that. And our legal system might not always have an avenue to persecute, as we've just seen.
Yeah, it's a no other
There are,
op-
there are
it's the-
people that are dead, and yes, they might have been committing criminal acts, but instead of getting a trial, they're dead.
It's a
They're just dead.
no other option mentality.
Yeah,
And
right.
I am not attempting to justify either way,
Right.
because I'll divulge enough. I don't like to get so far into all my little thoughts and my own personal. Well, here's how I feel about it, because I don't know. Like when I come onto the show, I try more and discuss ideas rather than.
Yeah.
Well, here's how I feel. Like who gives a fuck how I feel? You know what I mean? I'm trying to take an objective look. And
We care.
It is not. Yeah, but maybe other people don't. You know what I mean? Like maybe if I keep
This is
my
about the
feelings.
conversation, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like maybe if I keep my feelings out of it, I can more accurately take a look at the ideas and discuss ideas rather than, well, here's how
Right.
I feel about it, because it's real easy for me to get up in my feelings. I don't agree with the looting either, but I don't come from that experience. And
Right.
I will tell you, I don't agree with it. Like, I've sat there looking at it and been like,
This isn't
like,
helping anything.
One of the things
But-
when Cassidy was talking, she's like, well, yeah, this guy put himself in a situation where, like, you know, he knew trouble was going to happen. Like, the police were told to stand down. Like, people who owned businesses and had homes in that area were like, cool, the police have just been fucking told to stand there and do nothing while my business that supports my life, my family's well-being, my fucking livelihood, just burn it to the ground. It's too dangerous to protect
Right.
my rights as an American.
Right.
So fucking stand there, let him burn it the fuck down. So, like,
So yeah, if
I
some
don't
kid
mean-
decides that he's
no,
going to
but
come
look,
and help, then
I don't mean to justify either side. What I'm trying to do is take a look and say we have such a disconnect
See it
here.
from there.
Like
Yeah.
it's really hard to just be like, well, how can someone be like, well, you should just light a match and burn the whole thing down? Some people really feel, because we've talked about how like fucked up things
Yeah.
are and how broken and hopeless so many people are and how we have mental health problems just running rampant. Like, I think it is apparent to all of us that there's something wrong. And I think the big problem why we can't have people sit down and just openly and honestly discuss these things, there's always got to be one side or the other, is because I really think a lot of people are jaded to the point where they're like, look, we've tried diplomacy. We've tried to do it the way they told us it would work, and nothing changes.
Right. If
I'm
you-
not justifying
I mean,
either way, but I think that is why
Yeah.
there's
I
such
understand
such a divide.
everything. I get it, and I understand it all. I will tell you, creating crimes by going out and regardless of what music I like, anarchy's not the answer. Burning down society and burning down people's businesses and their homes and hurting the innocent is not the answer, and I will never get on board with that. I don't give a fuck how egregious you were in the worst case scenario of life. As terrible as that is, you can't go hurt other people who are innocent. You
Sure.
can't fucking do that,
But
because if you do, we don't have a society.
Well, and
Go
Eric,
go live in Cambodia.
I
if
hear
you
what
wanna
you're
live that
saying.
way.
Like, and
I understand that.
I hear what you're saying, and I get like, and I
I
like,
do
and
hear
I
that
like
point.
that
These
you're
people are hopeless.
I like that you're passionate and
Yeah.
everything like
No.
that, and
No, I
get
do
it.
hear
I don't
that
get
point.
it.
but
I do hear that
I
point.
do feel like what, like, I think like with the maybe like just kind of like the like what's de-escalation of like the conversation, maybe like it's
I'm
just
fine. I'm just.
I know, but I mean, like, you're
I'm
very,
like, you know,
you're very
Come on.
passionate about that kind of stuff, and I
people
appreciate
getting
that.
hurt for no reason
But
of
I
any
think,
color,
and
of any,
but
any
I
creed.
think that part of
And I do hear that point.
part of the systemic issue that we have here, and I don't really necessarily like, and I don't know enough about like whatever critical race theory even means to like speak on whether
that
I think it's
everything throughout American
is
history
about racism.
needs to be viewed through
the lens of race. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and I do kind of know that, but I haven't spent enough time like with the material, I guess,
Okay.
to maybe to feel like I can speak
Yeah,
from
me
an
neither.
educated position on it.
neither do
However, and I think all of us, just based on where we come from in this city, you know what I mean, like, I think it's a little bit more challenging for us to kind of see things from these sort of extreme perspectives, and I think it's honestly difficult for us to imagine, like, how is the world so polarized? Because, like, they've made jokes like, you know, Pittsburgh's like, you know, we're city hicks, like, we really don't, like, we don't have these like huge, like, it's not like there isn't big wealth here, but compared to some places, like, it's
Right.
not the same, you know what I mean?
Right.
In the same way that there's not like the same level of extreme poverty, like, yes, there's homelessness and everything, that, but we're a small place, like, we have enough ability to like access resources here that, like,
Agreed.
I don't feel like we see things as insurmountable as other parts of the country do. And I'm not saying that makes it I'm not. I don't.
I get it.
I think that one of the
I think we all don't agree with any type of crime.
No.
But I just think that, like, if I were to put myself in a parent's shoes, even, like with you having children, if I was growing up in my community where I was from, and daily, weekly, monthly, I'm finding out that my friends' kids are getting killed. Things like this, being treated, getting incarcerated for small, and I'm like, they're kids.
I would move my family out of there.
Some don't have that.
I don't believe
can't.
that. I don't believe it. I think I will take it a step further to believe that if there's a will, there's a way, and there's a randomness to life. We were all born anywhere. We could have been born on the plains of Africa and maybe lived about 10 minutes.
And here's the thing: is that
born in Greenwich, Connecticut, and been a trust fund baby.
I'd agree with you to a point, but here's where I can speak from and I will speak from my own personal experience in this regard because I feel like it's relevant. Like when I was growing up, like I was kind of like raised by like two pretty like modest parents that were like, neither of them had a lot of means. Neither of them went to college. Neither of them really even really encouraged me to go to college. Like that just wasn't a thing. Like I wasn't really raised with like a lot of sense about how to like save money, make money. Like I just didn't have those kinds of that was not the focal point of my upbringing.
Okay.
And when I got older and my dad was already gone, my grandfather decided to like kind of help me, and he was successful, and he like a little bit at a time taught me how to view money and how to view education and how it related to like being able to like build a life for myself.
Right.
And I learned those things later, whereas I can truly tell you that if I hadn't had that like intervention, I don't think I would be the person I am today. Like I wouldn't have had I wouldn't have had the psychology and like the ability to think through problem solving on a basic life skills level to be able to make the kind of decisions that I make today. Okay. Surrounding how I view.
But you jumped to economics. I'm with you. But I'm talking about protecting my family.
I understand, but what you're talking about does require resources, and I don't think that everybody is brought up in the with the same. And I'm not just talking about physical resources. I'm talking about they all work together. Like if you're not someone that has the kind of resources in your upbringing to know how to utilize physical resources like money or transportation. Like I was taught how to use public transportation as a teenager. I grew up with tons of kids that didn't know how to do that. And then when I became an adult and I didn't have a car because I couldn't afford one, I could still get to work. And I could still get a job. You know what I mean? Like I knew tons of kids that just didn't know how to do that because no one ever taught them. And it's not like it's hard, but if you've never like been pushed to do certain things, like you just don't always like know. And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but like it's very unfortunate that like we have entire communities of people that basically don't have dads. You know what I mean? Like because none of them stick around.
That's what I've been trying. That's what I said earlier.
And I'm not saying that there's like a way to. There's not one way to solve that.
We reward that behavior.
It's I mean, and I agree.
It's not even a racial thing. It's people want to say it's a racial. It's not a racial
You're
thing.
You're right.
We societally reward bad behavior. We've been doing this for decades, centuries probably.
I agree, and I think it was an unfortunate kind of a byproduct of basically a societal problem that occurred, whether it's through the family breakdown or for an unrealistic structure of family values, or however we approached trying to the institution of marriage. You can get into all different kind of ways that the family unit has kind of dissolved over time, and maybe just the way that we set it up to begin with wasn't realistic. But regardless of that, you've got entire communities of people that just don't have a family unit, and and it's, you're right, it's not a racial issue. I see that, and as someone who grew up without a dad, basically, because my dad died when I was 13. But
it is a socioeconomic issue.
There is, but I'm saying that people are designed to have two parents. I'm sorry, you can say whatever you want.
Well, kids have the best shot.
People do a great job making all different things work. Generally. But I think that
that was my point. I think how do I say this? This is the thing I don't understand. It's if my child was in danger because of where we lived, and we lived there for whatever the reasons were, maybe because I have to, or I don't have to. The point is I don't have to, but I'm choosing to live there because of my lack of funds or whatever.
Because it's your community.
I would do anything.
It's your children's friends.
I don't care.
That's what I'm saying.
If my kids aren't safe, I will do anything.
And that's, I think,
to get them to remove.
I think that's part of the protective instinct of a father, and I think we have an entire
But I wouldn't burn my neighborhood down as the release of that anger. I would get my kid out of there and start a new life. I wouldn't burn my neighborhood down because I'm angry. There's no justice.
But it's the kids a lot of times that are trying to burn it down.
Well, the same difference. I'm just saying.
And we don't know that. We weren't in that position. We don't know how these people feel.
But the solution of my angst is not to inflict pain on others. It's to get my kids to safety, start a new life, or do anything to get them out of harm's way. It's an injustice, and I shouldn't have to do that, but there's a lot of things in this world you're going to have to react to that aren't fucking right.
Hold on, I have to jump in. Do you consider yourself being an emotionally healthy person?
I don't know. That's a loaded question. I would hope so. I would hope so.
Right. In general, I would say that you are. Like, you've raised your kids well. You know what I mean? Like, you've made a good life for them and for yourself. Like, look at this place. Like, you know, your accomplishments paid for all this. Now I'm partial to the fucking lights, but what I'm saying
I'm okay.
I think for whatever reason, and I'm not saying it's an accident. I'm not saying like, oh, well, through genetics, you grew up okay and you took care of yourself and you got a decent job and you took care of your family. Like, there's a lot of effort there. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of luck in there, too.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Like, how much of it was my choice?
Randomness.
How much of it was my choice and how much of it was just this is the way the pieces fell. But I will say somebody who has grown up in an abusive home, in a broken home, in poverty, in drug addiction, maybe sexual abuse, like, that's what I mean. Like, what are the odds of that person being, not that they're not able, but equipped to
as a parent?
As a person.
Whether they're a parent or just
hold on.
Whatever.
As a fully formed, emotionally developed person, to take a good look at not just, like Julie said, their resources, but the world around them and say, look, here is the healthy solution to this problem, to this situation I'm in. Now, does that, and this, I'm not saying I have the solution here, like, I don't. But this is the real, like, crux, I think, is how much of it is, yeah, we got to understand, like, the shitty situation somebody is in, and how much of it is, yeah, but you're still responsible for your choices. And I firmly believe, no matter how many cards are stacked against you, you're responsible. It doesn't mean that, okay, guy over here grows up in a wealthy white neighborhood, he goes to a private fucking school. What are the chances he's going to end up on Skid Row? It could happen, he could get involved in drugs, but he's got a way higher probability of being successful. Like, his dad started him out with his own fucking business. Like, that is the privilege of, like, you know,
that's the randomness of life.
Inherited wealth.
Right.
But that's what I mean. Like, what are the odds that this guy, he grows up in a black neighborhood, it doesn't have to be white or black, but this person in an impoverished area whose school sucks, whose teachers are just overtaxed, like they can't barely, they don't have the resources to do their job. Like, what are the odds, so to speak, that he's going to be able to overcome all this adversity and end up in anywhere near as good a situation as this person over here who had different advantages, who had different opportunities? That doesn't alleviate the privileged kid from any of his decision, and it doesn't alleviate the kid who grew up with all kinds of adversity from any of his decisions. I will never look at somebody and be like, oh, it wasn't you that made that decision. Like, you're always responsible for your decisions, but I think we have to take an honest look at, like, everybody has a choice. Does everyone really have a chance? But to your point, like, what is being done in response to that is like, oh, well, maybe we'll just take an opportunity away, like what was done with affirmative action, which pissed a lot of people off, like out in California, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to give somebody who was not maybe as qualified for a job extra bonus points on a test, and some people are just like, well, that ain't the American way. That doesn't solve anything. Like, that is not fixing the problem. Like, I really feel like what I would like to see more of is an investment in education in impoverished areas, because I feel like, yeah, you can't do anything about the fact that some people come from a broken home, from a shitty neighborhood. There's high crime, there's drugs. Like, some people have the fucking cards stacked against them, and I wish we could just change that. I wish there was a magic solution. I think every single fucking person knows deep down that shit ain't the real world. But if we made more of an investment in education in impoverished areas, I really feel like that is the biggest leg up we can give someone, whether you're white, black, somebody who's in an impoverished area and who really has a low chance of success to live a healthy, happy life, not addicted to drugs, with strong family connections, and to have a really like successful like I'm not even talking about physical or material wealth, but just a successful life. Like, not all screwed up in drugs, not like hooked up with a guy who beats her and like has kids to like 3 or 4 different dads. Like, the problems that you deal with, it's not a white black thing, it is a poverty problem. Like, poverty is really hard on the knees. Like, what is the real solution to reaching out and going, hey, this community is completely devastated.
Yeah, and
poverty is running rampant. But that's the thing. The people who have enough money to do this, do they really want to help other people? Is the idea really to use the wealth that we have to help those who don't have it? Is that the truth? Or is that just a fucking illusion that we use to sell Hallmark cards and fucking Cokes at McDonald's?
Well, we've been paying taxes in this country for programs passed through generations and generations and decades and administrations, and always being sold to us that these social programs are going to solve these problems or help these certain problems in society, all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And they either are, it's going to be a temporary fix while this will right itself, or it's going to be a long-term fix, whatever. But here we sit, and if I'm hearing everything right that I hear all day long, it's worse than it's ever been in every regard. Nothing has worked. All the money from the private sector taken through taxes and then spent by the public sector on things like that have either been misappropriated or have been dealt incorrectly, or
where's the bang for my buck?
Or it's been misused by a portion of the population who's gotten the funds for a targeted issue and it's been put elsewhere. I don't know. I'm not there to see it. The problem is nothing on a social engineering standpoint has worked. Okay, nothing has worked. What about the concept of, there's got to be some kind of personal responsibility in your ultimate journey in life. It's got to be there. I don't think as a government we expect enough personal responsibility from the populace. We just don't. Our solution is just to basically make it as easy as possible, and maybe that's what people want. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, but then it's like you've got this other side of things where it's like, what was that one thing that was trying to get passed where they were going to like investigate any transaction over $600 or any like. So it's like, I agree with you, like we need to like have accountability, but then like where's the balance, and like are we gonna just like micromanage everybody? You know what I mean? Like it's such a
we don't want the government that involved. But
yeah, right.
I don't know if moving out of these communities is the, like you said, I feel like education is a strong factor, because we are saying everybody has opportunities, but
I'm fond of it saying everybody's got a choice. Does everyone really have a chance, When you've got so many cards stacked against you, it doesn't alleviate you of your responsibility for your choices. Right. But if it's a choose your own adventure book, and like most of my choices lead to bad outcomes, like sooner or later people are human. Like, fuck this, I'm selling drugs, man. And absolutely, I'm going to go to jail if I get caught. But like, I don't have any real opportunities. Like,
I understand the logic of all that. It's a risk-reward circumstance at that point. Sure. I'm going to risk going to jail because this is the reward, and I don't see another option.
People are human.
I get that. And again, how much of that is a social engineering flaw that we've screwed up the process for these people and didn't provide enough education, enough opportunity? How much is it the randomness of life? I mean, and how much is it's personal responsibility. I don't know. There's a triad there. I don't get it.
It might be more than that. How much of it was engineered intentionally to keep the what do they call it? The socio-economic established order exactly the fucking way that it is. Because a lot of people say, look,
entirely possible.
3-letter agencies like the FBI and a lot of other, like the DEA, like a big part of what they're really doing is not just keeping us safe and keeping crime down. It is protecting the established socio-economic order. Like, when you have individuals who have a lot of power and a lot of influence and a lot of wealth, like, if things go upside down, it's happened in countries, like, the whole wealth just dispersed. Like, the whole country fell into lawlessness, and people that had a lot, your everything crumbled and destroyed. You know what I mean? Like, it can happen in a country. Like, look at places like Sarajevo, Kosovo, places that we saw on the news. You know what I mean? Like, that was the one thing that a guy I knew, he was in special force, and he's like, everybody thinks that it can't happen here. Everybody thinks that it can't happen here. He's like, it only takes a short period of time. Things get so bad, and that grip that we have, that say the government has, that societal order has, it slips and it doesn't get reasserted right away. Bad goes to worse quicker than you would think, and your neighbors become, we're animals trying to survive, you know? And so a big part of, like, what people see as the government, like what people see as the authoritative administrations, a lot of it is designed to protect the socioeconomic structure here. And, like, maybe to a point that's good. Maybe we're not ready for a totally free society where you can go from rags to riches, not overnight, but you get what I mean? Like, how much of the structure is necessary and how much of it is in place because people with power and influence and money want to keep that shit. And if I think we've talked about it, like, it's not a coincidence that 98% of the world's wealth ended up in the hands of 2% of the population. Like, if we don't necessarily, because for us, like, for me, race isn't a problem on a daily basis. Well, I'm white.
Agreed.
But if we don't look at it through, like, critical race theory, through the race lens, but we still look at it through, like, the ones in power, the true haves want to stay the haves, like, I'm not saying I would ever look at it and be like, yeah, it's cool, go burn down a business, go kill somebody. Like, you're always responsible for your choices, but I can look at mistrusting the authoritative.
But there's a disconnect somewhere. I have mistrust for a lot of organizations.
Sure.
Government, corporations, I got a shit ton. I got local real estate brokers who don't pay their employees. I got a lot of mistrust. The point is, I don't act out and go, like, burn the fucking place down.
Sure.
I'm not going to go steal the car of the person that runs the business.
Sure.
My mind doesn't go there. Yeah. Like, that's because, you know why? To go there, I'm now doing criminal activity.
Well, and I think, you know, to go back to, like, where this kind of, like, this little loop of the conversation started is, like, you know, Jerry asked you if you think you're an emotionally healthy person, and I think
obviously it sounds like I'm not.
No, I think because you went through the steps, you know what I mean? And that's honestly, like, that's like a big thing that, like, you know, when we talked about getting sober, like, as an alcoholic, I'm not really, if I'm an alcoholic in active addiction, I'm not playing a whole tape. I'm not thinking my actions all the way through. I'm just acting because I'm acting in addiction. But as an alcoholic in recovery, you know, one of the things that they teach you is play the whole tape. Like, what is this decision going to lead to? Like, what's the end result? And I had to learn that through sobriety. You know what I mean? That wasn't something that came naturally to me. And I was still, like, regardless of the fact that my parents didn't, like, you know, they didn't stay together, they didn't have a ton of means, but they had enough. And I was raised in a very white, upper middle class area when I was in, like, I mean, I didn't necessarily have as much money as, like, my, you know, classmates, but I went to a very nice school and I graduated from a very nice school. So it's like, I still had a lot of advantages, you know what I mean?
Sure, certainly.
And I still had a lot of things working in my favor. However, as an alcoholic, I'm just not naturally wired to make good decisions. So, like, you know what I mean? And honestly, you could look at that
you have a lot of company.
You could look at that as genetic too, because, like, it's like, how much of that was stacked against me just biologically, you know what I mean? Like, and then based on environmental circumstances and cultural, you know, references and how I was raised and all these other things, you know, how much of a chance that I have to not be an alcoholic? You know what I mean? What are the odds? It doesn't matter. But what matters is that, like, later in recovery, I was taught to play the whole tape and to think through my actions before I acted. Whereas, like, if you've never, even if you're not an alcoholic, if you've never been raised by anybody that, like, if you were just raised by criminals and that's all you ever see, you know what I mean?
Survival mode.
Where, like, you're talking about welfare. You're like, there are third generation welfare families, and that's what they know.
I understand.
Like, there is no way. I'm not saying there's no way, but it is an uphill battle to pluck someone out of that circumstance and say, okay, you're going to learn a different way.
Look, and that's the thing. Who's even trying to do that?
That's nobody. That's just it. Is it like, and it's a broken system. And you're right. It, like, whoever's idea it was to start things to, like, reward that behavior and to set things up that way, and it happens in both black and white communities. I've seen it in both situations.
The race is irrelevant. It's the
you're right.
condition.
There's more percentage of white people on welfare than there are black people.
Always I think it always has been.
Yeah, it's not a white-black thing in that regard whatsoever.
I've definitely heard of plenty of white people, whether they're in trailer parks or housing complexes.
Let me be very,
it doesn't matter.
Hold on, let me be very clear.
It doesn't matter.
I am not against welfare. I'm not against the need for it.
Yeah,
I'm not against
you're right though. I agree with you in the sense that the way that it has been
it's been pimped.
The way that it's
people.
been infiltrated into our society in a way, like it doesn't always help people is the problem. When it helps people, when it works, it's great.
It serves a purpose.
You know what I mean?
It's abused.
Yeah, when it does what it's intended to do, where it gets someone over a difficult time, you know what I mean, whatever, or if it's just a little supplemental income for someone that maybe just had a lower income and something shitty happened towards like their retirement years, and now they have like a little bit of extra to spend because they get some food stamps. That's good. Like that's what it's meant to do.
Yep.
I think another avenue too that this is really, I think what I'm getting at a little more too, is something that'll keep you from burning the city down. Something that'll keep you from burning the city down is hope. And there's just people that were never really given that. I mean, I have to say I grew up in better situations than a lot of people, but there were definitely times where I was just like, I'm never going to have what I need. I'm never going to have what I want. Mm-hmm. That's just not ever going to be available to me, no matter how hard I work and everything. And I think too, when hope is lost because you lost somebody or you're losing people in your community and it, that along with maybe some emotional instability that was there before, or it caused emotional instability, we just aren't in that position. So I'm not saying like I agree with committing two wrongs don't make a right, for sure. Mm-hmm. But I haven't been there.
Well, I there's no way I can say that I honestly understand anyone that's struggling with the concept of hope. I can't sit and say that I don't, because I've never, knock on wood, for no matter how bad some circumstances were in my life, I've never could say that I was in a hopeless situation. So I cannot relate to that. So if there's a human condition and reactions thereof, I can't speak to it, and I acknowledge it. It just outward looking in, the answers appear more logically to me in life than the way humans seem to react to them. You're in a bad area, your children are at risk, it might be difficult to do it, but I'd find a way to get my kids out of there. That's the logical response. Now you can say, okay, well, your whole family's there, you don't have the money to move. Those are obstacles that can be overcome. The way I look at it. Now, some people don't want to overcome them. I get it. I'm not saying right or wrong. I just look at things.
Believe that they
I
can.
think of things.
Right. Exactly.
I get it. But I'm saying, to me, we sometimes make, excuse is the wrong word, we say the system is set up in a way that it's just too fucking difficult. And yeah, you know what? I haven't figured out a way to make $10 million yet. I'm trying, but you know what? I'm never going to get there, and I have not figured out the way to do that. Okay, so in my little world, is it unfair that I can't earn $10 million like the guy down the street? Is that unfair? I don't think it's unfair. It's not. I mean, what I'm saying is, everybody is where they are because they want to be there. Now, kids probably the exception, but if you're a functioning adult, mid-20s, 30s, you're there because of the choices you made. You might not really want to be there, but the choices you've made as an adult, if you were lucky enough to get to adulthood, you survived it, to that point where you're able to maneuver in society, and we don't want to take. We just don't seem like we want to take ownership in that fact today. We don't want to take ownership of that we are where we are because we put ourselves there. I mean,
think
in
that
most instances,
the only thing that I would say that
the
only thing I would argue with that is that I think that does take a little bit of credit off. Like, and here's the thing: is I think people lean on their parents a little too heavily, especially like I've seen some people lean way too heavily on their parents. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I do think you're taking a little bit of it, like just like your upbringing out of the picture, because I feel like there's something to be said for just raising your kids right. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of one of the things that like everyone sitting at this table at least had the benefit of like, you know, parents that actually really loved them, that like wanted the best for them, and that regardless of what their means were, coming from all different areas, genuinely like did the best they could. You know what I mean? And not everybody comes from that world. Like I have people in my family that like that just don't like, they didn't have that experience because like whether for whatever reason, you know, like they had maybe one or the other parent that just was not like participative in their upbringing, just didn't participate.
But what are we trying to prove? Are we trying to prove that that's the, I hate to use that word, but is that the excuse as to why
like an adult would fail?
Adults do bad behavior?
No, but I think
failure and bad behavior are two different things to me. Like, I'm talking about bad behavior. And I totally
agree. But and what I'm saying is that you can give a kid the best possible, you know, circumstances, and some kids are still going to choose to be addicted to heroin and to do all kinds.
Not here for that reason.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that you cannot put everything on, you know, your family of origin or whatever. Right. But I think that to say that every single person in their like mid-20s has ended up there entirely by their own doing.
No. I don't think we've all. No. You're right. No one's ever got there by themselves.
And not just that, but I still think that that's part of like what we're looking at as far as just this whole, you know, like societal issue. And, you know, that's where a lot of people, like, it becomes really challenging to try to, like, legislate some of this stuff because you can't legislate a family unit. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, like, create legislation that, like, decides that, like, families have to stay together or families have to, you know, do X amount for their kids up to a certain age, or, you know what I mean? There's no way to say what's going to benefit one kid versus the other or whatever that's going to create a better society moving forward of more functional, healthy, emotionally secure, sound kids.
But like, it served us well that we have set a system in place that has encouraged out of wed children. Now, wed's a kind of weird thing because I'm not really a big believer in marriage, to be honest with you. But in terms, we've set a system inside that rewards monetarily more children. You know, I don't know that serves society well. And again, that goes down a whole very slippery slope of like, well, you can't legalize having children. Well,
that's my point in saying that, like, you know, you can't really legislate that.
Of course, but that goes towards more like communist China.
I know, exactly. Like, you only get to have two, and then or one and done.
Here's the thing, and that
with that, I'm opening the fireball.
Yeah, good call.
But how responsible is it to say it's okay to have 7 kids if you have no intention on finding the ways to have the means to support them?
Again, right? I'm going to pull focus. I'm going to pull out of the emotional viewpoint where it's like, take care of your own goddamn kid. I mean, there's something to be said for that.
Sure.
However, like,
it's highly recommended, yes.
However, like, even leaders, like,
fireball is out.
I'm not making an excuse for leaders. Like, I tend to fucking hate politicians, and that's my own private, personal feelings. But here's the thing, like, in trying to look and be like, well, how do we delegate these resources? How do we engineer these social programs so we can try and help? We can't let them starve. We can't just throw tons of money at the problem because it's a big black hole and poverty isn't getting any better. So you, a proponent of freedom and free market and democracy, just suggested something that is commonplace in communist China. Yeah. It's not a black and white world. It's not that easy. And that's why I'm kind of like coming back to, dude, like, it is absolutely on you. Like, if you care about your children, get them out of the fucking ghetto. I guarantee it's not that easy, but where there's where there's a will, there's a fucking way.
It's not easy.
But look, why do people in poverty tend to have kids who end up in poverty? Why do people who are middle class, more times than not, tend to have a kid who's middle class? Why do people who are in the upper class, more times than not? You don't hear about, like, some wealthy business owner and it's like, oh yeah, through a set of circumstances, his son, like, is poor. I'm like, wait, what do you mean he's poor? Why is he fucking poor? Like, that shit doesn't, like, it sounds stupid because that's the way shit happens. If you're in poverty, chances are he doesn't have to be, but yeah, your kid's probably going to be in poverty, he or she. If you're middle class, more times than not.
But why?
Because
I don't know why, but I know it is true.
When you study sociology, no, but seriously, because
I can tell you why, because of fucking resources. Because I can help my kid out if I'm middle class.
Plus,
if I'm in poverty, what the fuck can I give my kid when he's in poverty?
Right.
I don't have shit to give that kid.
But that's see that mindset
But it's
is
the
so
reality.
hopeless, man.
You're right, but it is the reality of the situation.
It's a reality
If you
because
are
of
in
human laziness.
If you're in poverty, what the hell do you have to give your child?
Right.
Plus, didn't all your
Oh my
grandparents?
God almighty. Oh
But
my
wait,
God.
didn't
No,
all
wait.
your-
Hold on. I'm not saying it's right that you don't have shit for your kid, but if somebody is in poverty, what do they have to give their child to help them out of a bad situation? Like, where's the hidden money that they've got into their mattress?
It ain't about money sometimes. It's industrious behavior. It's teaching your children right. It's the fact how important their education is.
Yeah.
It's about discipline, not letting them roam the streets, having them in at a certain time, teaching them fundamentals of life that they can then become functioning and upwardly mobile people.
Where did you learn that from? Where did you learn that from?
Well, where do you think I learned it from? My home life.
And if they hadn't have been there to teach that to you, who would have taught it to you?
If you don't know those things, it's really irresponsible to have kids. I'm being honest with you.
You're right.
Don't be
How
bringing-
many people
don't be
have
bringing
kids
people into this world
irresponsibly?
if you're not a functioning adult that can't wipe your ass.
But
do not bring kids into
And
this
I
world.
100%
And I get
agree
that,
with
but
you.
I
But
hit
at the same time,
I hit on a point that I don't think can be avoided, and I don't like to pat myself on the back. But when you have parents who are handing down values to their kids,
Of course.
you have values that are handed down generation to generation.
And where do those
Right.
values come from, Jared? They
don't
come
know.
from the family. And guess what we try to do in the society? We try to give the values out from the fucking government.
Yep.
From social programs are going to somehow give you values. Going to teach you to be a better person.
Well, and that's
Don't
what-
teach you to be a
that's
better.
what I
Going
was
to teach you to lay
talking
on the
about.
couch and fucking eat Cheetos all day.
But Eric, that's what I was talking about. Is it basically like, we've tried to create this system of legislating, like you said, like values and a family unit, and you just can't do it. Like
You can stop them from having kids.
What are we gonna do? Sterilize people?
Maybe.
I mean,
Maybe.
I was about to say, didn't
I'm
all of our grandparents have like 8, 9 siblings, and they were all poor?
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
people grow
Immigrants,
up that
like,
way?
you know,
Yeah, but
like-
where was
yeah.
the crime rates, though?
No, and
not
I'm
like
saying,
today.
and there was a family unit. You know what I mean? But like, it just is our perspective on how.
What poor
People-
is.
Yeah.
Versus
And not
quality
only
of
that, you talk about a family unit and different things. Like people did used to have different types of communities where you'd raise children in a community, not just in like one
Yeah.
family unit. Population was less. Like they've done tons of studies that have shown that like with rats, like you just keep adding rats and then they start displaying mental health issues.
Yeah.
Like the more dense a population is, the more mental health issues
Oh,
there
no
usually
doubt.
are.
Well,
No
and I
doubt.
And so
think
now we're dealing with like a population that's like,
No
way
doubt.
inflated than
No
what
doubt.
our
It-
grandparents were.
Like also, it just wasn't unpopular. Like my grandmother stopped going to school at like 8th grade because she went to work. There was just too many. They worked and.
Yeah, you gotta help provide for the family.
Yeah, there wasn't maybe the emphasis on paying into the education system and things like that to go do things were just different. But yeah, like now if you have like 7 kids, it's different. Back then 7 kids was a
Remember when we had
family.
the Octagon mom. Whatever happened to her? Remember the Octagon lady?
yeah, I don't know.
Octomom?
Well, and then the
They
other thing
canceled that
too,
show.
She ran out of milk.
Those kids
Who
joined.
I learned something.
They canceled that show. Those kids joined the circus.
Wait, so this is interesting. I learned something about how like the 8-hour school day was actually originally instituted to get kids used to factory work. Because
Wow.
there was initially, like, I don't know what time period that would have been,
I
maybe
think
the
it was
40s?
the Rockefeller Education Foundation or
Something
something
like
like that,
that.
where
But
they
the-
started to engineer
Yeah.
education in America towards. They were like, look, we don't need farmers, and we
Yeah.
certainly don't need scholars.
We had the Industrial
Right,
Revolution,
what we
yeah.
need is people
Yeah.
to work these industrial jobs
Yeah.
because
Turn the screw.
we're a booming industrial nation. Like, you set your education system up around what
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
citizens do you need to
Right.
make
Don't they do that in
the
China?
machine.
They put them in the the companies will go into a community and become the community, and they have the schools next to the shop, and they raise the.
I've heard about that.
'cause
Yeah.
the reason I know this is I'm pretty sure that a lot of the guitars. She wants some food.
Oh, you want to eat?
She's doing sign language.
We had to avoid some of the guitar manufacturers in China
Because of sweatshop labor.
Because we couldn't verify that we wouldn't touch them if they had to. We were suspecting that we couldn't validate that they weren't doing it.
Right.
But that's how they would go in these communities. And I think in South Korea it was similar. They'd go in the community, and that company would become the community.
Yeah.
And the everybody would work there, and the company would almost be a surrogate, like somewhat surrogate family member.
Little mini government.
I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm just saying that's been done, and it's still being done in other countries, no doubt.
Right.
I don't know. I just I get agitated because I just think that we do not give a nod to personal responsibility anymore, and it's always someone or the system's fault everyone else is to blame for something. For my suffering, see, I found a way to bring that around. For my suffering, it can't be my fault. Nothing that I have done has caused me suffering. Heaven forbid, no. It's what Johnny down the street did, or the guy on the television did, or that mean principal at school, right? I mean, it's like at some point you got to teach your kid that, you know what, you're in the fucking predicament you're in because you hit that kid in the face in the school lot, or you got a bad grade, or you got to repeat the grade because you flunked out. I mean, look, there's so many factors involved. I get it, but in the end, if you don't teach a child responsibility, just basic responsibility, nothing will grow from that, and you'll end up with kids that are going to be incarcerated, and it won't take long. It'll happen at 9, 10, 15 years old, gone. I mean, that's a fact, and I think that is extremely sad, and it's been going on for generations in this country. And I think now we've made we've made it pretty easy to just kind of exist today. Because technology in general, we've got very liberal social programs, and I think the jobs, even your employers now cater to their employees like unbelievably. They do. And if you don't like where you work, guess what? If you're willing to work, there's lots of jobs out there. Maybe same field, maybe different field. It's a good time to be looking for work. If anyone needs a job, open up. Is there Yellow Pages, or is there wanted ads?
Google,
yeah, Google it. Whatever.
I'm eating this off the floor because that's how I was raised.
Right on.
5
second rule.
Right.
2, yeah.
That's another thing too. A lot of people are saying, like,
all right, give me a goddamn cookie.
you want the brownie?
You want the brownie?
I got the cookie.
Okay. A lot of people are saying, like, nobody wants to work anymore and everybody needs help.
That's true.
No, I still don't know any. I don't know. There's always going to be people that take advantage of the system, of whatever. But I still don't really know anybody who's out of work. I know a ton of people. Most people change trajectories and are in a different field, a different job. I can't believe how many people have changed just over the past couple of years.
No.
And have gone somewhere else. And now a lot of these businesses are so desperate for employees, and they're doing the sign-on bonuses. They're paying unexperienced people more than their core people.
$15 to make a McRib.
And it doesn't even have no sauce on it.
That's important to me. But yeah, that guy.
Hey, you can start moonlighting there, making some McRibs. We're gonna see her at the McDonald's drive-thru. There's Cassidy back here. Hey,
I'll get fired because they'll be like, all the McRibs disappeared in one night, and it happened to be the night you started, Cassidy.
Oh man.
But I don't know too many people that. A lot of people have changed jobs. I can't believe how many people have changed jobs.
There's a lot of real estate agents during the pandemic. People have just decided to take a dip in the pool there, and a lot of them have left.
Not everybody has what it takes. Well, I do think there are a lot of people that I've seen a lot of articles recently about just people kind of choosing a different path or reprioritizing, and like I think it was a good time for people to kind of like decide, what their priorities were and what they wanted to do. I consider different jobs all the time, but like I haven't stayed anywhere for a little while, so I mean, like it's also good to build up some seniority places. You know what I mean? Like there's value. And jumping onto something new for a paycheck, like when you're like, oh, hey, like they're going to pay me another $1 an hour, and they're going to give me a $500 sign-on bonus or whatever, $1,000, something like that. But like, I might not get the same like schedule rotations
Right.
or, you know what I mean? Like preferential, whatever.
Give and take.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, whatever.
Well, here's my theory coming out of my one brain cell. So, once again, we are creatures we're going to take, our brain wants to conserve energy. So we're creatures of habit. We're doing a lot of the same things because it's the easiest thing to do. And I think a lot of people stayed in jobs for a long time because it's what they did. It was just their job. So then when
What's admirable, though?
Yeah,
if someone finds
absolutely.
something they dig and they do it well.
Yeah, 20 years at the same place, it has not been a picnic every day. But you just, but there's so many benefits to that. And I do think that there are benefits to staying in the same place, obviously, like you said. But I also think there are a lot of people, doing the punch card thing, just going through the motions. They got this job. It paid them well. It was working. And then quarantine happened and it totally reset that, this is our habit. Yeah. So then they were like, what if I need something
positive?
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people it was. I'm hearing a lot of good things from people that changed jobs, but I also am hearing there's a lot of people that are leaving places now because these businesses, it's such a double-edged sword. Nobody's winning in this situation because people are so desperate for employees that they're paying, like I said, the new people, anybody off the street without experience who hasn't been there forever,
it's
who
pissing
didn't
off the existing employees.
Yeah. And the existing employees are like, there are so many job openings right now, I can go to McDonald's and make a ton of money. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of core people leaving places. And so then these businesses are stuck paying more to these unexperienced people that, quite frankly, probably don't even really care that much about this business because they're not attached the way that the core people are.
Yeah,
so
that's just bad business. Period. If you're not gonna retain your good employees and your older employees by keeping the salaries right.
It's a challenging situation though because
I would imagine.
I think
you
they're
end up in
desperate.
a labor crisis and you need to bring more people on now in that situation. Should probably look and say, look, if this is our entry level starting wage,
we got to elevate everybody.
We have to elevate everybody.
Yeah.
But man, it's a tough stuff. People look at it like a corporation is this one mega guy. He's got a big cigar. He's got a big top hat. He's made of fucking $100 bills.
It is like the Monopoly guy.
It's not like that in an organization.
DuckTales just swimming through a room full of money.
No, and I don't mean that there
Trump.
I don't mean that I don't mean that especially at big corporations there aren't powerful, wealthy people at the helm, because obviously there are. But it's not, well, we're this united front. We're all about just fucking our employees and making as much money as we can.
It's capitalism, man.
But what I'm saying is, okay, labor crisis. We need people. We have to increase. It is a no-brainer. We tried to just wait it out, and they're not coming. We cannot operate our businesses.
Where are they?
Well, what I'm saying is we cannot operate our businesses. So it becomes a no-brainer, and it obviously was because so many. All of a sudden, you see McDonald's $20 an hour. Come on in. Please come work for us, right? So in that situation, all of a sudden, I guarantee there were plenty of people who were like, "Hey, this is going to," and I'm guaranteeing it was middle management, right? I'm middle management, and I deal with my technicians, and I can tell you right now, I'd be like, no, you can't, you can't offer a bunch of guys coming into the industry, a bunch of people coming into the industry with no training, with no they don't know shit, and then pay them as much as the people who've been working here for 5 or 6 years. It's just not going to work. We have to, well, middle management is going to take that up to their supervisors, and they're going to take that to executive level management, and they're going to be like, okay, that's a really good point. We crunch some numbers, and for us to take all our veteran people and give them an incremental increase, we're already getting killed on our starting wages going through the roof. We simply can't justify that expense. It's going to hurt us too bad. So you end up in a situation where the person who saw that problem coming probably raised their hand don't do this, bad idea. We cannot justify this. It is going to hurt our bottom line too bad. And that's the one thing that people don't give a shit about. You need to pay your employees. And I'm not saying you shouldn't pay them a living wage, that you should not pay people enough to get by and live. The problem is, eventually a company goes out of business and people are like, oh, well, that company just shouldn't have been in business then. And it's And that's real. No, because they say if you cannot afford to pay your employees a living wage, then you should not be in business. But here's the thing. If you have a rash of businesses, and I'm not talking about mom and pops, if you have a rash of corporate businesses suddenly going out of business because of the labor crisis, some people are going to be like, haha, good thing. They weren't paying their employees enough. They should go out of business. Now, all of a sudden, right, it hurts the economy. The economy starts to tank, right? Inflation starts to go up through the roof, and the overall quality of life goes down. Where are the people to stand behind that decision and say, well, the labor crisis was a good thing, well, the wage hike was a good thing? Like, I'm not saying that, oh, this is like my like sneaky camouflage, like ultra conservative tactic to like slide in trickle down economics to sell it to you. I'm just saying, like, if you have an idealistic idea where you're like $15 an hour, every single person coming in the door, okay, it's creating other problems, and it might cause some major businesses to go out of business, and it might hurt the economy.
Of course.
Oh, well, that's just what needs to happen then. And it's like, well, wait a second. Like, the people who you want to help are now in an even worse situation because, yeah, the middle class taking a hit and going down. But the people who were already, like, barely subsisting, like, they're hurting that much more. Like, if you institute a policy that was not fundamentally, but idealistically a good thing, and it just didn't work, like, your idealistic idea wasn't filtered through the processes it needed to make sure that it was actually gonna fucking work in the real world, not in your idealistic head.
Right.
So,
which is like most of this.
You can do a dumb thing for a good reason,
ideas.
and it still doesn't make it a good thing if it hurts the people you're trying to help.
100%.
No, and I'll share this too
sophisticated
because
thought, Jer. That little extra bit of thinking before they act.
Yeah.
If they don't, because all the idealistically charged decisions are usually made without any real sophisticated thought into them.
But then again, like with people mistrusting sources so much, you have someone who comes in and says, hey, this is what's going to happen if you do this. And they're like, nah, you're just protecting corporate interests. And what did we say about the media? Like, you and I don't even trust the media. So, like, the whole fucking thing isn't working.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But what I was going to say is that, like, you know, and this was in the paper, so it's not like it's any, like, big secret. And I work for an organization that owns a big chunk of the city. So, like...
The city, yeah.
But they've been coming under a lot of criticism.
We should have Highmark Man instead of Batman.
Highmark Man, that's pretty good.
But they came under a lot of criticism because, you know, like, everyone's always like, oh, they're so big, and, like, you know, they're not a nonprofit anymore, and all this stuff, and, like, they can afford to pay, and, like, they're traditionally known for not being the highest paid healthcare. You know, like, if you go to that organization from the other one, you might take a pay cut. That's, like, just kind of the way it is. But, like, they make up for it in other ways, and so, like, all year we've
Pizza
been having
parties.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I got food service, like, nutrition and food service workers month
Casual
or week
Friday.
was last week or whatever, and, like, I don't know, it was like a month ago, and, like, they gave us free food, like, all week, and that's, like, the beauty of being a nutrition, because I got, like, all kinds of fun stuff. Anyway, I mean, you obviously.
Did you see her eyes glaze over? She was like, "I got
very
all
easy
sorts
to
of
buy
fun
me
stuff."
with food. Yeah, I got a candy apple and a walking taco last week for like just for fun.
Really? That sounds awesome.
It actually
$8.
It was delicious. I don't care. Like, it made my day. And, like,
Just a little treat.
We got sandwiches, we got pizza, we got candy, we got all kinds of stuff. It was fun. You know, it's whatever. But I mean,
we talk about a lot of food.
Anyway,
food's a big part of what we do here.
The point I was going to make is that basically they got
food?
criticized all year because they didn't offer any hazard pay.
Okay.
They didn't offer like any increased wages through the pandemic. They were offering sign-on bonuses, but not offering anything to their employees. They still did raises, but they were like a smaller percentage than it ever done. All these different things. And so they came up with this big package, this year to try to like create more employee incentive. And then the other thing they did as an end of the year thank you for sticking through the pandemic is they gave or are giving, I think it's going to happen in like a week, every single person in the entire organization is going to get $500. This was in the paper. Like, this isn't me giving away any secret information about my income.
Right.
Not pizza, $500.
I know. I was really kind of hoping for pizza, but despite my own personal disappointment in this, moving on, what I think was like at least respectable about the way that they did it is instead of just like kind of like caving and being like, everyone's asking for these incentives, like we're just going to like haphazardly give it to them.
Okay.
And I think part of why they've been able to grow as an organization over all this time is that they did take their time thinking about it, and they made it's like literally it's such a big organization to give every single employee that much money, and it's enough money that it's at least significant to everyone. You know, whether it's maybe more so to others, but it's not anything to like.
Who doesn't not want $500?
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna say, "Well, that's not enough." You know what I
shave
mean?
my
I want
head for
$234.
$500.
I mean, maybe.
You can keep the rest.
Yeah, I feel like even if you're really rich, if someone was like, "How about $500?" You'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like I'm not gonna turn it down. But it was kind of like. To do that, I feel I forget what the pay like because they like I saw the article because they like posted it in our like employee thing, but it was an outside article. I think it was like a multi-billion-dollar investment to do that to like because
billion.
Yeah, it was like I think $3 billion. I think it was what it was.
Billion.
I think so.
With the B.
I mean, I don't know how many because like here's the thing is we have employees like. In Italy, we have like it's like, you know, everyone thinks of UPMC as this like Pittsburgh organization, but it like it spans all the way to like the middle of the state. There's places I think as far as New York, as far south as like maybe like I don't know, there might be one in like the Carolinas, one in Florida.
Charlotte.
Yeah, like I feel like they have like just these kind of like satellite
So billions
place.
possible. Like Dr. Evil, billion, trillion.
I think it was like
Billion.
3 billion or something like that. And maybe it was million.
You should
I don't
research
know.
that.
I'm not sure.
$3 billion is a lot of
I
fucking
can't
money.
remember what it was. Okay, guys, I'm so bad
Biden
with
got
math.
the T going on, man.
I am
You
so
got
bad
the
with
trillion
math.
stuff going on.
I
I
know,
just feel
numbers
like-
are
I'm just
Billions
encouraging
are
my
all-
thing.
it might be. I'm just encouraging
money.
you to research that.
Good idea. I will.
Numbers.
I'll report
words.
back. Regardless, it was a significant investment in the employees,
Sure.
and like and this is like everybody. This is like, you know.
This ain't no pizza party.
No, this is doctors, you know, like all of the admin people, all of the, you know, housekeeping, PCTs, like literally the only people that didn't get it were executive level. So like the only, like it was like it was management.
They already have $500.
I hope so.
This is crazy shit, man. Corporate America is a lot different than it was in '99 when I left. I mean, the shit that goes on today is so different.
And it's so weird because it
So
was like
different.
everyone was like clamoring for something, and you know, so they come up with this thing, and like my hope is I was like, well, at least I hope it like improves morale, because honestly, like I'm not a rah-rah cheerleader for anything. Like I think it's fucked up that in the city, like we only really have like we get two choices. It's like it's the bipartisan system of Pittsburgh is like this like little microcosm of like what we have to vote for, and you know, America in general. We've got this like two-party healthcare system. It's bizarre, but I
What's
mean,
the other one?
Highmark.
Okay.
Or AHN now, I guess it is, Allegheny Health Network. Those, I mean, none of the other ones. It's not that they don't matter, but like if, like you've got like other healthcare companies, like you've got like, you know, Aetna, and you've got, but like basically as far as hospitals in the city,
Right.
any facility that you go to is either going to be affiliated with UPMC or AHN. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. And based on, you know, like what your insurance is, you have choices in network or out of network, and it's really only two systems.
Yeah.
Like that's really all it is.
Agreed.
Which is weird, you know. And I'm honestly like, to make to come up with an opinion to like which one's better. Like I've had both. I mean, I think per capita, like I feel like we have like more facilities. Like I think UPMC just has more. So like if you happen to have UPMC insurance, you probably have more to choose from.
Yeah, I've had both. And
Yeah.
I think UPMC has more choice.
That's what I mean. Like I don't know which. Like I was always happy with AHN when I had like Highmark and stuff like that. You know, I never felt unhappy with them. But it's like it's so funny is because it's like I think like when we're talking about it with like, you know, these like capitalist like, you know, things is that it's like people don't recognize that to do anything significant, it is, whether it's billion or trillion or million.
Quadrillion.
I don't know. Regardless,
It's not trillion.
It's not. But it's a significant investment, and I think and people don't realize. I think like just the level of decision making that has to go into something like that,
Right.
And what the impact can.
Sophisticated thought.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Hello?
and so that's a point that I'm
Again.
making is that I think that the expectations that people have sometimes are just really unrealistic. Is that you think that someone's just going to
Yeah,
make this
yeah.
decision like, oh, like, you know, you should just increase the living wage, just increase the pay, give everyone a sign-on business, give all the employees a bonus.
That's what they
you know?
voted for.
But I know, and recently, I think there was like, some like walkout that happened, which I don't know if it actually did or not. But from what I understand, they got 15 an hour and then they wanted 20. And so it's like, it's just like the expectations. I feel like there is just never any thought as to like what the long-term effects are going to be. And I think that, taking a decision like that and actually like taking a little bit of time to make it, and maybe having people look down the road, regardless of who they are and whether they're, they shouldn't be someone like me, because obviously I can't even tell the difference between million and billion. But I feel like
It's a couple zeros.
Really,
a couple zeros, whatever.
really important question though. What's the lowest amount of money you would shave your head for? Eric, you go first. You tell us.
I'd do it for about $1.50.
Eric's like, I'd do it for a McRib.
I would give that away to
for
charity.
a couple more Oreos. I mean, I said last night 5,000, and I feel like that's about my limit. I don't know that I would
Really?
do it for 2.
Know your worth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have nice hair. Like, I complimented my. I mean, Cassidy knows. Like,
Hair's important.
Whether she's been doing last 2 haircuts. I think my friend Lauren was the one that did my last 2, and like both of you guys just like my hair, and like I've got nice hair, and I get random compliments on my hair, and I have for like almost my whole life. Like people,
So you're like $5,000.
5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5,000.
I don't
How
blame
about you?
Less than 5,000. I know. I would be less
McRib and 500.
Yeah, I don't know how much it would take.
You wouldn't do it for $500.
No, I feel like you would go a little higher. You have really nice hair too.
How long would it take to grow back?
She also has really good resources though that I feel like
I
you could-
also do a lot of wigs and
Yeah.
stuff, so I'm thinking like, could I rock with just
you
wigs?
could get Freddie's
and-
prenatals.
yeah.
That would help out.
Oh, it's for take prenatals for his hair.
I was about to
You
say
didn't
I
know
heard
that?
that, and I
No,
didn't wanna,
I didn't. But
Did
now
he reveal that? Did he reveal that with the show with
with Alicia.
and you and
I
him?
don't remember hearing that. No.
Ooh.
So you just let it loose.
Sorry,
edit
Brad.
that out.
Yeah, he's bragging about how nice it makes his nails and everything.
Oh boy.
Sorry, Fred.
I mean, it does. I'm not gonna lie. So anyway,
He's probably going to produce breast milk or something.
Look, if
Yeah, whatever.
prenatals gives you gorgeous
Pantene quality hair.
fucking mane like that,
He's going to have a lot of folic acid.
Yeah.
you just
Poor
deal.
Fred.
You just deal with the side effects.
Whatever.
He's
Not that big a
just
deal.
dealing with it.
It's not that big a deal.
He
So you-
does have great hair.
He does.
I think even if he didn't do anything to take care, he just is blessed with really good hair. We should
Yeah.
ask him how much.
Yeah, that's a good question.
They'll pull a knife on you.
I know. He'll be like, "Who asked you?"
Fred
What are
will
you
be like,
talking about?
"What's their
And I'll be
address?"
like, "It's just
$37.50.
So do you
Get
think it
some
would be like
shears.
more than 2,000, less than 2,000?
for me."
Yeah. I'm curious because you have great hair. Like I would not. If I had your hair, I don't think
How
I'd be.
long would it take for your hair to grow back to length it's at now if you shaved it off completely?
At least like
Years.
5 to 7
Yeah.
5 or 7 years.
Because I
You
feel like
figure-
with mine,
Yeah, man.
Wait,
mine's
how
not
many
that
years?
long. I could.
I was
Your hair
that
grows.
length?
Your hair grows like a fourth of an inch, half an inch a month. So you figure a year's like, if
a
it's
foot.
if it's taken care, it's probably about 6 inches.
6 inches.
If
That's
it's
5 to 7 years right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you should go higher. Don't sell yourself short.
I think it would depend on the situation. Like, would somebody be like, "Here it is. Here's all this money. It's cash."
Oh, yeah,
or,
that's-
you know what I mean.
Cash only.
Or
Or is it an annuity?
yeah.
Ooh, that's a thought
Yeah.
too. Is it like?
Can I pay you in baseball cards?
What about you, Jared? 'Cause you've shaved your head before.
I don't know.
It's been a long time though.
I try to do my parlor tricks for fun,
Yeah.
not for profit.
Okay. So like, would it be like on a stunt television show or like?
I'm not doing it for the Christmas show if that's what it's
Do it right on this show. Why don't you all three? You say all three of you. And since I'm Daddy Warbox here, I'll pay you all. How much? What's your number?
5,000.
What's your number? $500.
It would have to be the right situation.
Okay.
In the
I
right
was about to
situation.
And by
in
the
the
way,
right
I am not
situation.
Daddy Warbox. That was an absolute. It's said in jest because of the conversation we had.
In the
here.
right
And I was about
situation,
to
I'd do
say,
it for free.
I'm totally a part of the problem because if it were me and Julia doing it together, it would need to be like equal pay. Then I'd be
Yeah.
like, yeah, 5,000. She's getting 5,000. I'm getting 5,000.
See, I got you back.
Yeah,
I got
see?
you back. You're gonna be just fine.
Are we, as a society, do you believe, trying to eliminate suffering in a broad way? Or are we moving to potentially eliminate all human suffering? Are we on a path to do that? And if we are, do you think we'll be successful? And if we are successful, what will society look like?
Yeah, I don't know if that can be done. Maybe.
Yeah. I feel like that there are like a lot of things that we're trying to do. Like I said, all the medical stuff, I think that's like a, I think we're doing our best to try to like eliminate or to like reduce physical suffering, which is good. You know what I mean? I think there was a lot of things that we kind of just needed to do initially. I think that has a lot to do with why people look a little different now, because I feel like we just have a lot more resources on how to like stay healthier if you choose to, or like procedures can be less painful, all that kind of stuff. But I think as a more like broad stroke, emotional, psychological, spiritual question, I do think that people are, like, that there is kind of like a bit of a movement. It's one of the things that I notice like in some of like the newer churches and stuff like that. They try to make them a little bit more, like it's like less wrath and fire and brimstone kind of thing. I think people, even when you were talking about religion and things like that, I think that there is an element of part of like the establishment of like religion, I think at certain stages in history, was because like life was a lot of suffering, and people, they always talk about how like they would like try to like
try to give them hope.
Yeah, promote that there was going to be something better on the other side of the suffering, kind of. Whereas I feel like now we're kind of moving this direction of like, it's all good vibes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen that the whole thing, like, good vibes only and all that kind of stuff. And I get it.
Good vibes only.
But, I think that's actually partly a response to, basically, like, we're in a time and space where we're the most, like, stressed we've ever been as a society. Oh, God, your shirt says good vibes.
No, it doesn't.
It does. It legit does. I can verify. But
he sewed that in there himself.
Yeah. I think like, we're in a point in history where people, we're just in, coming out of quarantine, I guess, or coming out of like, an unprecedented time where things were, intentionally shut down. Leading up to that point, I think we're becoming busier and busier and busier, and we're like, and still now things opening back up, it's like we kind of all have that mindset. I saw like a meme the other day that was like, hustle culture is not normal, or, and you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff that, not everyone should be trying to monetize everything, every little hobby they have. But like, I think there is kind of like this idea and this movement to kind of like, always be productive, always capitalize on, any of your free time, any of your talents and all these kind of things. But I think, and I've talked about this before, like we have this like comparative nature now with social media that we're always like looking at ourselves compared to other people, and are we as happy as our neighbor? Are we as, like successful as our coworker? All these other things. And I think it kind of creates like this underlying like sense of fear that like, we're not enough, we're not doing enough, we're not accomplishing enough. And I think that like the flip side of that, like kind of like just sort of like background buzz of anxiety or like, like a feeling of being unsettled is what we want to create anything, like any other thing that we can do to like alleviate that is like where this like good vibes only culture kind of comes to play, where it's like, we have this like almost like contrast of like this like internal kind of like noise all the time. And so we're trying to kind of like alleviate that. And I don't know that that's the solution necessarily. I think, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a complete elimination of suffering, because I agree that I think that, going through different things creates not just character, but like, I think it helps define who we are.
Well, learning, right?
Yeah.
You learn from
your mistakes sometimes.
100%.
But I do think that like, there's something to be, learned from just maybe not needing to have this like constant state of activity, like we were talking about last week. So it doesn't all have to be happiness either. You know what I mean? Like I think people are like really interested in, like we keep talking about, these like extremes, these like polarizations that, whereas like a big part of life happens in the middle. And I think people are really uncomfortable with that, because I think that like, we're so used to being stimulated.
And if that's true, then how did that happen? Like, well, that's a weird thing.
I don't know.
Like
I think people are really uncomfortable with it though, because they feel like that's not enough, or that's not okay, or that's not like,
That's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's like a result of. I don't think it's really a result of age for me necessarily. I think that's part of it. But like, I personally, like, through my own, trials and tribulations or journey or whatever, it's like there was a time that I wasn't really satisfied unless I was like feeling something more extreme. You know what I mean? Like that it's like I was looking for those like really extreme, points of satisfaction and stimulation, or like I didn't feel like I felt anything unless I was feeling something, even if it was bad. And like now it's kind of like I'm a little bit more comfortable like existing in just like a more moderate state. And I think that there's like a certain amount of growth that happens in that. But sometimes I actually think that it's very difficult to get to that place without a certain amount of suffering.
Yeah.
But I think it's also difficult to get to that place without a certain amount of like happiness either for some people, because it's like you don't know what your possibilities are.
Can suffering and happiness coexist?
Sure.
Yeah. How would you think?
We keep talking about suffering, and I think we're looking at a lot more than just natural consequences of our actions. Like
man-made suffering.
Well, suffering is for real. Suffering is like, suffering's not, to me, I got a bad grade on my test or things didn't work out, like, with work. I fucked up my business proposal and we didn't get the project. That's like the first world version of suffering. You know what I mean?
We'll be doing that tomorrow.
Suffering is, it's fucking, I mean, it's bad.
It's intense.
It's bad. I think we should draw the line between what's suffering and what's not suffering.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about when we talk about suffering? Are we talking about somebody who's experiencing, like, some pain in their lives, some discomfort, someone who's genuinely unhappy in their lives? I think that causes suffering, Or we're talking about the kind of suffering where it's like, these people don't have enough to eat, and, like, they don't even have soap to wash themselves.
Or clean water.
Yeah, like true suffering. Like these people are starving to death. Like there's people being brutalized.
Suffering versus inconvenience.
Inconvenience, or just the throes.
Annoyance.
Just the throes of life. Let's call it that. You know what I mean? The throes of life. Like I was late this morning. I got stuck in traffic. Like all day long. Like I just had a very challenging day, and like it sucked. And now, depending upon my level of like mental well-being, like how much of that I internalize as like actual suffering is kind of up to me.
Right.
But
Agreed.
I think there's certain states of being where people are suffering and they're just suffering.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have a lot of suffering in this country. Like we do, but not the same kinds of suffering that they have in other parts of the world where you can just fucking, like, there's violence here, but like in other parts of the world, like you can be killed at any moment and it's not even that big a deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's
100%,
countries like people get killed in the street, and here, like, say what you want about America being a violent culture, like when someone gets killed, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people are coming out of their houses and taking videos, and the cops are there, and fucking ambulances there, and the news crew is there a lot of times. Like when someone gets killed here, it's a big deal. In some other countries, like I've talked to people who travel the world, they're like, dude, human life doesn't mean there what it means here. Like,
right. And usually if you're getting killed here, it's a quick, non-sufferable, usually you're getting shot, something like that. Whereas in other countries, there's people who
die of starvation.
They get acid thrown on them.
You just get killed in an instant.
Their fingers cut off. They get, you know what I mean? There's things like that.
So the Americans don't have, how do I say this?
I'm not going to say we don't have suffering. I won't say that. Because if you're truly unhappy, I think we have a lot of mental suffering here.
I was just going to say that too. I feel like emotional suffering.
Honestly,
like
we don't have perspective of what true suffering is.
I think that's true. A lot of us don't.
For sure.
And I know that I don't. Like, I haven't ever had to like go without, as far as like be hungry for days, like not like live on the street, and like some people here have had that experience,
100%.
But I think it's hard to compare, but I think in general the suffering that the average person has had to go through here compared to some other poor countries, like you just can't even really compare it. But it's hard to weigh pain against pain. Like someone who, they have enough to eat every single day, like they have clothes on their back, they have a home around them, like that person maybe kills themselves. Like
Yeah.
We could probably look at that and say, well, maybe they were suffering. It might have been pretty bad. Like, would you end your life if it was just like, mildly inconvenienced today? I think I'm going to kill myself, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to compare somebody who has the basic essentials of life with someone who doesn't. Like, it's really hard to compare that and to weigh it, you know?
Right.
But, like, I don't think we should completely discredit our suffering simply because, like, we're a more privileged country with more opportunities and better quality of life.
A different
because
kind of suffering.
if you're in mental agony and you're just unhappy and you're totally disconnected, like if you are just in constant misery and you really just, I think the big thing with people who are really struggling, like with mental health stuff, like you just constantly feel like you're alone. No matter what you do, no matter how many people you're around, you always feel like you're completely alone in this world. That's suffering.
Yeah.
No doubt. I agree 100%.
And I think that is a hard thing too, is that when you are somebody who mentally struggles and we're in a society where they tell you should not be struggling unless you A, B, and C, then it's really hard to deal with those feelings. Like, why am I feeling this way? So I feel like there's a...
You didn't earn that suffering.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
You don't deserve that
well,
suffering.
and then there's like a
Right.
there's
and
a
then
feeling
you can't
of guilt.
even like really
So then
feel
there's-
your
Right.
feelings and feel okay
Right.
about them because like you said, there's guilt on top of that. There's
Yeah.
like, and now I'm inventing problems in my head.
Right.
Right. There's like some sort of disconnect. And I think arguing with yourself every day, that's a big part of suffering. You're just constantly in that
peace.
state. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The big thing for me, I can speak from personal experiences, living without peace, without any measure of peace, like in my head, in my heart, like in your soul, if you want to go there, no peace whatsoever. That is hard to deal with. And long term, like that is suffering, having no peace of mind whatsoever, being constantly...
Define peace for me.
Just being comfortable in my skin, just being okay with me, just not constantly having the war between my ears. Constantly. Like, I think so many people, and I know I used to do it, like, just aren't okay with themselves. Like, I'm not okay with me. Like, I'm just not okay with me. And like I am now, and I didn't used to be, you know. I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I wasn't just okay letting myself be okay. I didn't feel like I had like a place within myself where it was okay to just feel however I was feeling. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like being a stranger to yourself, if that makes any sense. You know, I went through alcoholism and had, I'm not going to say drug addiction, but definitely like a wild lifestyle. And like, I dealt with depression and some other things. And like, I went through a lot in my life. Like, maybe I was a maker of my own problems. I think in a lot of ways I was. But like, I think the big thing when you get down to what my issue was, like, I was just not okay with me. And I mean, who can say why? Like, some people, you just talk to them and you're like, this person's really comfortable with themselves. Like, you can tell they're just not all twisted up in their head. They don't constantly get into this like mental consternation. They're not biting their fingernails. They're not like, constantly on edge with anxiety. You can see they're not real down on themselves. They just have a certain sort of presence of being. There's a calmness, there's a serenity. And I think nowadays, especially like in our society anyway, that is in short supply. And I think constantly being on edge, never really feeling like you can just have a moment in yourself and breathe, like never really feeling like you actually know who you are.
Right.
Yeah, there's a measure of suffering in that, even if it's not to the degree where it's like, oh my God, I just want to blow my head off. Like, even if it's just, I never really feel okay, there is a measure of suffering in that, because I don't believe, you can take a cynical viewpoint. We're not made to constantly be in misery. We're not made to constantly be disconnected from everyone around us and from the world around us. I don't know. It's not the natural state of being. And I think so many of us have gotten to the point where we've accepted that is life. Like, you don't get to be happy. Like, you don't get to have good relationships with people. You don't get to have the opportunity to communicate with another human being and feel like it's real. It's always this game I'm playing in my head to come out here into the world and do this show for everybody before I go back to myself where I'm always alone.
It's
And
always
that
like
sucks.
on stage, backstage stuff. You know, like
backstage I'm alone, and on stage I'm scared of everybody around me. Like, I don't think we have a lot of real connection between people, and I think we suffer for it. I think that's more of the kind of suffering that we deal with here, rather than, well, I'm not going to eat tonight, and that sucks because I've been hungry for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. And I think that because we have more of an awareness, like more of a global awareness of the fact that, like, you know, there are people in those situations, there are people, like, you can make a case for the fact that, like, we're very disconnected from it because it's not our reality. But, like, I think that most of us at least are aware that, like, there are entire populations of people that don't have clean water, don't have enough to eat, you know what I mean? Like, that are living under, you know, dictatorships that are harsh and cruel and, like, you know, being punished for really, like, insignificant things beyond measure.
Absolutely.
But I agree with it. It's like, you know, because we have that awareness, I think that there is a certain level of, like, guilt and kind of, like, just this idea that, like, our feelings are not valid. You know what I mean? That, like, whatever suffering we have, like, whatever feelings of, like, whether it is, you know, some form of depression, some form of angst, some form of anxiety, some form of, you know, disconnect with yourself or the world around you, that, like, those feelings aren't, like you said, like, it's not earned. Like, you don't,
it's not
like, you don't,
valid.
Yeah, like, you don't
There's
get
no validity to it.
And then you get, like, this other side of this kind of, like, coin where it's like, oh, everything's valid, and then, like, you know, if you're someone that kind of views that as, like, ugh, like, I can't even take that seriously. I'm just like, oh, sweetie, like, you know, you're entitled to all of your emotions, and however you feel like you need to act because of them
what
is
does
okay.
That even
and
mean?
Da, da, da.
You're entitled to your emotions. People say that all the time. I don't know what that means.
Well, just that you're always, like, that your feelings are never wrong. Like, you know, your actions can be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you can act incorrectly, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can wrong somebody with your actions. Like, how you feel, like, and this is the thing, is that, like, regardless of the fact that I don't like that culture. What were you laughing about?
I think I get what you're alluding to, like the new age therapy driven, like getting in touch with your uniqueness, getting in touch with your anger, you know what I mean?
Like, it's just, to me, it's almost, like, gross. Like, I, like,
playing
think about
with your
that.
inner self constantly,
and, like, part of me is, like, you know, I was, like, raised a little
blind,
bit,
you'll
like,
stop doing that shit.
You know, do you think that was, like, literally, like, a thing where they were, like, trying to tell people if you masturbate that, like, you're gonna, like terrible like there was like, oh my god, it had to do with Kellogg's. I was heard about it on a podcast.
What the fuck did you just say?
Wait.
There was a very hard right that was just made here, and I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Oh my god. So the guy that owned Kellogg's, I heard about this on a podcast. He had this, like, he was married, and he was, like, proud of the fact that he never had sex with his wife. And he wrote this, like, whole dissertation on, like, if, you know, young boys masturbate, that you should, like, sew their penis into, like, this thing, and, like, if girls masturbate, that they should sew their labia shut, and, like, it was this whole thing, and I can't remember, like, what the context of this was, but it was the guy that, like, initially started.
I'm never eating cornflakes.
He made breakfast cereal.
Yeah,
I will never eat cornflakes again.
And then, like, because I
you imagine him, like, just all horny and repressed, just eating his cornflakes. Like,
but it was, like, some anecdote. Oh my god, I'm looking this up later because I, like, it's so weird that it came to me just now, and I have no idea why. Like, what the hell was I saying right before that?
You're like, Kellogg's. How's that work?
I don't even know where that came from. Oh my god. Anyhow,
that was a hard right there.
The cornflakes will save me from carnal lust.
But that was, like,
I need a healthy breakfast right now.
That explains Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks and the creation of Cookie Crisp and all that, I'm sure.
Oh my god.
I'm not gonna sully myself. I just need some cornflakes.
But that was, like, the anecdote was that came back to, like, and people are still eating Kellogg's after this horrible person, like, you know, was, like, literally suggesting that young children be, like, you know, like, de-sexed or whatever. I don't even know. Whatever. God, I don't even know where that came from. Just
history is bizarre, isn't it? When you really reach back and you see, like, how quirky the people were.
You want to talk about suffering?
God.
The Dark Ages.
I'm gonna have to look that up later.
I'm gonna talk about some suffering.
What?
I think we were talking about feelings being.
Oh yeah.
valid. And it went to
We went from that to foreskin being sewed up.
I'm sorry, guys.
Usually they cut the foreskin. I didn't know they sewed it together.
I can't remember where I heard. I know I heard it. See, like, I should stop bringing up things that I don't actually have hard facts for. 'Cause if I'm wrong and the Kellogg guy never did
they
that.
call that conjecture.
I know, right?
That's like, you know,
Just
of
trust
course
I don't
we
know what
always
I'm
go back
talking
to
about.
like stand-up comedy and stuff
Yeah,
too, and like
exactly.
comedians. But a lot of the popular comedians like in the circle now, they all came from like religious, almost kind of culty backgrounds. Some of them, like what's his name? He's friends with Joe Rogan.
Which one?
He was a
Joe's got a lot of friends.
Segura.
no shit. I can't think of his name. Ari.
Ari.
Yeah.
Oh, Ari.
Ari was and
Is he Jewish? I thought he was
yeah, he
Jewish.
was something. Yeah, I think he
Orthodox
was
or something?
Yeah,
Up by choice, as they would say.
and then there was Kurt. I can think of his face and his, but he was saying he was like he grew up in the one guy Kurt. He was oh god, I can't think of it. He did a lot of like voiceovers and stuff. Can't think of his last name. He's so funny though, but he grew up in like a religious kind of cult like thing, and they had told him like you are never ever to masturbate ever, and one of his jokes was, you know what happened to the guy that never masturbated ever in his life? And he's like, we don't know because it's never happened, and I'm supposed to be the first one. He's like, it never happened ever. So he had some good stories about that. But
Hey Google, did Mr. Kellogg sew his foreskin shut? That'd be some shit to Google right there. You know, I hope at least
Did you
one
Google it?
I hope. I'm kind of
was-
afraid to.
That was just for.
I might get images.
I know, right?
I just pray that one of our viewers is home, like looking that shit up.
look that shit. Google that
Oh my
shit.
god.
So talk about suffering. You know.
YouTube will shut us down.
Anywho. Oh man. Anyway, but what I was saying about my feelings
Oh, that hard right turn.
is that, like, I do think, you know, it's
Kellogg's, keep your hands off your genitals, please.
I could never eat cornflakes again after this show. There's just no way. I might have to go to Frosted Flakes.
You know what you
I'm
do
sure
when you
he's
get out
removed
of
from the company, like far removed from the company.
you
That
know
must
what you
have been a
do
long
when you
time
get
ago.
out of bed in the morning? Tell you what you don't do. You don't be touching yourself. You have yourself some cornflakes.
calm down there.
I know one
Chubbs.
thing. When I go take a piss, I'll be glad my foreskin is not sewn together.
Oh my god. Wow.
The guy's pajamas like had no way to.
So the
Wow.
piss just kind of trickles in between sutures, or how's that?
I
what
don't
is that?
Pee his
know.
pajamas.
Staples.
No
There was
holes.
something about Staples. Like there's like a whole anecdote.
No, we're
I'm
not talking
even
about
kidding.
Staples. No, we're not talking about Staples.
Oh,
That's
anyhow.
not happening. No.
Yeah. So you asked about suffering.
Yeah,
and
that was some suffering there. That was just mental anguish even thinking about that for a second.
Yeah.
Kellogg's sutures and staple flakes.
There's that big chicken on the.
I thought about that. I
Yeah,
was
the
like, that
big-
motherfucker creeps me out now.
All right, now I'm
That
looking
cartoon
it up.
chicken.
Cartoon chicken on the
Continue.
white
The
box.
rooster.
Continue without me.
Yeah.
I'm brave.
Oh,
I'm going to
cornflakes?
Google it.
Oh wait, it
Yeah.
was like repressed. It was like the rooster.
Yeah.
It had a cock on the box. It was like his subconscious.
I opened up the closet one time in a house, and there was a metal cock on the floor.
Like a rooster or no?
What?
There was the house is empty and vacant, and I was showing the house to my client, and we're going through, and he opened up the closet door to check the closet space in the bedroom, and there was a metal cock on the floor,
Like a real phallic symbol.
And I had to I had like a big
chicken.
metal rooster.
Oh, okay, like a weather vane.
And
I thought we were hearing a really
but it was like
interesting
it was
story.
the only thing on the whole entire. It wasn't like a dildo.
That's what I was picturing.
I was
Oh,
trying
that would
to.
have been hysterical. But I
Okay, wait. Sorry.
Oh God.
Cornflakes were part of an anti-masturbation crusade. In the 18th and 19th centuries,
You
the
can't make this
Western
shit up.
world worked itself up into a mass hissy fit over the idea of people touching themselves. Judeo-Christian tradition had already been damning masturbation as misuse of sexuality for ages, but Victorian era prudishness and the Great Awakening and other religious revivals in America created a perfect storm for people to really get obsessed with it. All right, it goes on like this. Kellogg's.
How was cornflakes going to help that problem?
Wait. So in the young United States, one of the loudest anti-masturbation voices was a Michigan physician named John Harvey Kellogg. The good doctor was a bit uncomfortable about sex, thinking it detrimental to physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. He personally abstained for it and never consummated his marriage, and may have actually spent his honeymoon working on one of his anti-sex books. He and his wife kept
I feel for that lady.
bedrooms and adopted all of their children. Sex with your wife was bad, but masturbation was even worse. If illicit commerce of the sexes is a heinous sin, Kellogg wrote, self-pollution is a crime doubly abominable.
Abominable?
Blech. Anywho, it goes on like this. So, if you guys...
Yeah, but how do cornflakes fit into this equation?
He's Kellogg, he's the person that...
Yeah, but how was that supposed to stop you from masturbating?
I don't know.
How do the cornflakes stop you from playing with yourself?
I think they were
No,
two
you said
separate
it
things.
started with cornflakes being part of an anti-masturbation movement. How do the cornflakes fit into this equation?
Wait, so he got...
I need clarification.
Early in his tenure at the sanitarium, Kellogg created a health treat
What was
for
he
the
putting in
patients
those cornflakes?
that consisted of oatmeal and cornmeal baked into biscuits and then ground into tiny pieces. He called it granula. This was maybe the worst name imaginable, since a very similar product with the exact same name was already being made and sold by James Caleb
Granola.
Jackson, another dietary reformer.
That made you horny as...
I don't know.
Granola.
Changed the name of his granola. He said that he made granola. Another of Kellogg's dietary innovations developed to ensure clean intestines was an enema machine that ran water through the bowel with a pint of yogurt.
Yeah!
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man.
This was interesting.
Half delivered through the mouth and the other half through the anus.
Yeah.
This one didn't really catch on.
This is what happens.
Made a movie about that, didn't they?
This is what
Later.
happens when you don't have sex.
Kellogg developed a few different flaked grain breakfast cereals, including cornflakes as a healthy ready to eat anti-masturbatory morning meal.
How does it...
He partnered.
How does it stop you? I don't understand.
You focus on the cornflakes
No.
and not on
This
your
doesn't make any
urges.
fucking sense to me.
He wanted to add sugar to the flakes to make them more palatable, but John wouldn't hear of it.
Yeah.
Are we surprised?
This guy was on about anything palatable.
No fun.
He just wanted to have no sex with his wife and squirt a Go-Gurt up his ass.
Wow. Oh,
Did you see the Seinfeld episode where George abstained from sex and became this genius?
Oh, no, I thought you were going to talk about the
yeah,
episode where they all
yeah.
bet each other that they couldn't
Well, that
stop
was
masturbating.
interesting, but the premise was that, if you don't concentrate on sex and the opposite sex or pursuing the opposite sex or pursuing sex, period, you have all this mental energy to do all these other crazy things.
Like the Go-Gurt machine.
Yeah, I
And
mean-
I'll tell you that I can't not speak for experience, but I'm of the belief that men spend a lot of their lifetime, with that as a focus on their brain.
Yeah, but look what they get up to when they
know, right?
Yeah, they invent cornflakes. What they fucking do? I wonder if
the
it's
cornflakes
affecting...
I'm cool with. The fucking Go-Gurt machine.
The Go-Gurt enema is a whole nother situation.
That goes in from
Like if
both
that's the
ends.
fruit of your mental labors when you're not busy screwing your wife or touching yourself, I think you should just choose
Screw your wife and touch yourself.
I think you should just choose the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
This guy would eventually
God.
invented the atomic bomb.
Yeah. Oh, talk about
Well,
suffering.
you can make the argument. I mean, have you seen Bill Gates?
Yeah.
Have you seen Larry Page at Google? Have you seen
Oh, that
Larry
nobody wants to
Ellison?
have sex
you
with them anyway.
I'm just putting it out there. There could be an
Listen.
argument made
Right.
that maybe those guys just had other things to think about.
Listen,
And maybe, I don't know.
sex and material wealth together is a nice thing to shoot for, but if given the option of one
She had to
or
use
the
that.
other,
She had to use that, didn't she?
We would like to apologize to all the viewers who up until this point enjoyed cornflakes in the morning. Or yogurt for breakfast. Man, jeez. We
It
ruined
made
the
you go, all right.
cornflakes and the yogurt.
all in one foul swoop.
Man. I hope nobody's
boy.
having breakfast while they listen to this show. Some guys just
Try
like
to release this
pushing
in
the
the
cornflakes.
This is absolutely one of the weirdest shows we've done so far. There's no
A
doubt about
hard
it.
right.
What made you think of that?
I can't remember.
She shouted out, Kellogg's.
She was like, by the way, Kellogg's were invented to help you stop masturbating. What the fuck?
She could have said Post, right? But no, she had to say Kellogg's, right?
I have no idea.
Oh, that was-
I cannot remember why it came
How
into
did
my
you
head.
come across this?
It was in a podcast that I listened to.
Now it's in its other podcast.
Exactly. I'm just trying to pass on this information.
Because it's vital information. It has to
Listen.
do with suffering.
Listen, it all comes back to our Puritan roots that people were just suffering unnecessarily.
Ah, the Quaker Oats. They were in on that shit, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever eat Captain Crunch and like fuck up the roof of your mouth? That's some suffering.
Yeah,
man.
that is suffering, but
True
it's
that.
so worth it because it's so
It
good.
is worth it, man. And I
If you could just
alleviate
let
that
it-
by getting crunch berries because some of them are
They could
with
get a
berries.
little-
You get a little bit of a break. 'Cause
They
it's
get a
not
little
cutting the top.
softer.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and
I think they put fiberglass in that shit.
it's so good though.
They're like, this helps the
man.
sugar get to the bloodstream faster.
Yeah. Oh man,
I was
though.
not allowed to eat that as a kid because my folks were so aware that shit was so like just rotted our teeth. I remember when I was at my friend's house and I got my first taste of that. It was like crack.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh, that's Captain Crunch cereal. Have some more.
What cereal
I
were you?
will. Thank you very much.
What cereal were you allowed? I hope it wasn't cornflakes.
No, I could have Frosted Flakes and Rice Krispies and things, but that Captain Crunch was like anything from Quaker Oats. My folks were like, my folks were brainwashed that anything from Quaker Oats has to be full of sugar, and we can't have that.
Quaker Oats is the devil.
So they went to Kellogg.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. See, he was
Kellogg
or
is wholesome.
Post, or Post.
very wholesome.
But
Kellogg's
yeah,
very
that is-
But I guess the other thing was that he wrote a bunch of anti-sex books, so that was like that. Anyway, but so if you're interested in
How do you
how
do
can you
these
even make
two things?
how can you even
All
make
I-
a case for that? Because
all I
like the
can-
human race would just be
All
gone.
I was about to say, all I can think of was the part in Bad Santa with John Ritter and Bernie Mac, where he's like, "I'm not advocating for celibacy," and he's like, "I hope not. In the end of the human fucking race,
yeah, but I mean,
he adopted
he's
children.
right. That's
Where
my-
do you think those kids
exactly,
came from?
exactly.
You were counting on other people
That's
to do
my
your
point.
dirty work."
That's my point.
Fucking Kellogg's.
Yeah, now they didn't sew their foreskin.
Obviously
Yeah.
not. That was supposed to be a punishment. I heard. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, if you don't
It all sounds-
Yeah,
masturbate
if you
or have sex,
refrain-
you're not going to get sewed up.
That
Yeah.
whole lifestyle sounds like punishment to me,
Exactly.
and not the fun kind.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Lord.
Yeah.
Man, I don't want to research any more breakfast cereal. Imagine fucking the guy who invented 2 Scoops, the shit he was into.
Oh God, the
Hey,
brand.
what's up under Pop Tarts?
Oh, I don't know.
No, the Pop Tarts people had to have been fun.
I feel
had
like
to
they
have
were
been fun.
probably like maybe like
Think
gay
so.
or something like
What is
that.
that?
I don't know.
Confetti, Pop
Yeah.
Tarts.
And I mean that in a good way. I'm not saying
Cornflakes
that in a
looks like it
negative
was
way.
invented by a prude.
Yeah.
But
Pop Tarts are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Those
Yeah,
people
well, how
are.
do you explain Cookie Crisp then?
I'm just terrified, like thinking of like Cracklin' Oat Bran and some other really healthy cereals, like Basic 4. It was
Twigs
like,
and
whoa.
bark.
What we thought you needed to do was squeeze your testicles between a Bible when you went to sleep at night.
You ever had cereal called Kix?
Yeah, I loved
It was
it.
good.
It was half the sugar than regular brand
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was still
Yeah.
sweet. It was
It
good.
was. It was so good.
You know what's
Kix
funny?
was that shit.
It wasn't
That's
that good, but I really liked it anyway.
yeah, me
Just
too.
like Crispex. Do you ever have Crispex?
yeah.
Yeah.
I like
good
those too. I
Yeah.
would dump fucking sugar on them, but
Sure.
whatever.
The worst
Yeah.
ever though was you would open up or you'd have a family member come, they would stay a week and they go shopping with your mom and they come back with their cereal. And you open that shit up and it's like
Some.
Frosted Mini Wheats or fucking
I do like some
oat,
Frosted Mini
oat
Wheats.
bran. And you're like, Oat bran? The fuck's an oat bran?
Do you know what else was really good? If you get plain Cheerios and just dump sugar on that too.
Yeah,
I can
like
actually
Take
plain
a really
Cheerios.
healthy
I
cereal
like them
and
now,
just ruin it.
but like when I was a kid, like it's so funny.
I did
'cause,
that
like,
with the Crispecks.
It's so
I
funny
made
that
piles of sugar
yeah.
on the little Crispecks.
And I think that's like it does show like that's part of like where the like helicopter parenting comes in. Is that like like our generation? I feel like that we were just like left with like sugar and like you know what I mean, like left alone, latchkey
We used to
kids.
sugar
and,
Frosted
like,
Flakes. We used to
that's what I'm
sugar
saying, like,
Count Chocula.
there was
We used
no
to sugar
accountability.
everything.
Like you could just
Yeah.
basically like
See.
you had free reign in the kitchen.
Mr.
Oh,
Kellogg
Kool-Aid.
saw this shit coming, and
Uh-huh.
he
He was
tried.
trying to
he
warn
tried
us.
to avert the disastrous future
Yeah, we were all probably masturbating as much as we wanted to.
by butting everything up.
I know I was.
We are not strong enough.
Button it up.
We were not strong enough as Mr. Kellogg.
Mr. Kellogg spinning in his grave.
I can
Yeah.
remember like the craziest things about childhood and my mother cooking. My mother's a great woman. One thing she wasn't was a great cook when we were younger. And I can remember just like her making my dad this mystery meat, like just putting a bunch of low quality ground chuck together and throwing it in the oven and unwrapping it with tin foil and putting it on the table, and there's grease just fucking everywhere, and nothing was healthy in the 70s and the 80s. Nothing, man. I mean, everything. There was bacon. I love bacon, but there was just bacon with grease dripping all over things, and you get thongs and you're passing bacon around the in the kitchen, and there was nothing healthy.
Even if you
Nothing.
did vegetables, you put so much butter on them.
Mancini's
lots
bread.
of-
Tear it apart, put butter on that
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
just smother it down.
Made with lard. I love Mancini.
me
I
too.
mean, everything was just so, I mean, just crazy. I mean, is it really any better today? Well, it's just hidden under chemicals now.
That's what I feel like. One of the things that we've like really like, and I do these in like educations all the time, is like the biggest perpetrator in like heart healthy diets is like trans fats, and that was like it's stick margarine, which was like this huge thing in the 80s. Everyone's like, oh yeah, margarine's better,
Absolutely.
go with margarine. And meanwhile, like that's like
They don't know. Eggs are bad. Eggs are good.
Oh,
eggs
yeah.
will kill you.
Yeah.
Have all the eggs you want. Don't eat any eggs at all.
I know. Now it's interesting because they totally.
It's like they have no idea. How can you
No.
call yourself scientists?
Peanut butter's good, peanut butter's bad. And people will literally like quote that stuff to me all the time, and I'm like, I think at this point we should kind of have an idea that like moderation really is the key with your diet.
Absolutely.
Like you can pretty
Yeah.
much eat anything you want. And like most dietitians even are saying that now. Like they're like, I follow this one dietitian that she was an intern for a while, and she's got like a little TikTok, and she's always like, there's no like foods that are off limits. Like eat whatever you want, but just like understand that if I ate these every day, like
Yeah.
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I'm not gonna be in as good a shape as I am now. Like you just can't
Right.
do whatever you want. But I mean, you can basically. There's no food that's like illegal.
Yeah,
know?
and there are
Not even
things-
Kellogg's.
Maybe they should have.
They let him do it.
I think we're gonna make a rule. We don't mention Kellogg's on the show.
Sorry. I have no idea why that pops into my
Jerry
head.
went through a period of suffering on this show this evening.
Mr. Kellogg is fucking banned from this show
Yeah, he should be.
forever.
Forever.
He caused some suffering, man.
Yeah.
I think he went through more than he caused.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, God.
Can you imagine being
A
a,
life of
parent
celibacy.
at the time, like thinking you're really progressive and forward thinking? You're reading these books, like, all right, button the kid's dick shut. That makes sense.
That's the phrase of the year. Button the kid's dick shut. Not so. Not latch. Not Velcro. Button the kid's dick shut.
Well, it seems a little extreme, but he's not listening to me.
Plug the eye.
Fucking Kellogg ruining people's lives.
Man, can you imagine if you were in an orphanage and then they finally told you somebody's here to take you home?
And it was
you
Mr.
went to-
Kellogg.
Oh no! Oh my God, that's awful. Talk about suffering.
That's
Right.
terrible.
I wonder.
sewing kit, Matilda.
Right.
Oh,
He's like, here's the
God.
secret of life, kid. And you're like, take
me back.
to the orphanage.
I want to go back into the system.
Take me back to the orphanage.
Get me out of here.
Terrible.
You old fuck.
No,
That should be the name of a movie. Take me back to the orphanage.
no, I don't want any yogurt.
No, Go-Gurt.
No, I don't want to hear.
It doesn't go there.
It makes you go all right.
Oh God. Wow, this has been a good
Oh,
time.
this has been real.
This has been educational.
I'm sorry, I have no idea why.
I don't know if we already covered any ground on suffering. It was so funny because I had this little tree mapped out on paper, like where this question would take us, and of course I left it all on the dining room table.
Well, you never would have seen this shit coming.
I was about to say, did you suspect
We didn't even
this?
get off the trunk. I mean, but that's okay. That's what we do.
I know.
Because it's fucking real.
Good call not
Yeah.
bringing the papers in, because at that point you just were just ripping them into pieces.
Oh man! But so we date the shows, but we do not date the shows. So Thanksgiving is coming soon here, and we'll be doing this almost. In a couple months we'll be at the year anniversary. And we initially were going to do a show every 2 months, so we're beating that.
We're beating the system.
We're beating our initial plan because this is show 7. We're
having so much fun.
Yeah, I want to thank the 3 of you on the show for what you're doing for me personally. This is a amazing thing, and this show opened my eyes to that. I wanted the shows to be more non-scripted. I wanted to have more regular guests, maybe not so much in an exact group setting like this with the same people, because I think there's something really unique going on here. But the idea of the 4 Friends series really was proliferated through this, and I appreciate it very much. I really do.
Thank you for keep on having us back.
I know,
keeping on having us
wild right and left turns that we keep making.
Yeah. No, it's good, and
just keeping it real.
This just open conversation, and I think people are starved for it, even though people are getting their penises stitched on this.
No, that's not happening. That didn't take.
We defeated Mr. Kellogg's movement. That shit didn't take off.
Yeah, that's not the kind of suffering that has proliferated in this society.
He thought he was going to get the info out there, and people were going to be like, "Oh, okay." They were like, "Oh my god,
no!"
He's like, "Can you imagine me? Like, I can't believe people are going for this shit."
I don't think I've seen Jerry just wound up in a while, man. It really disturbed you. Huh?
It really
it disturbed you over there, didn't it?
It confused me. It brought me to some uncomfortable realization.
Yeah, for men, that's definitely a very uncomfortable conversation for men
Imagine
in
sitting there
general.
like, I can't believe people
You
are
talk
going
about
for
like
this.
Well, he was talking about doing the same thing to girls too, but and here's the thing is and this is where I think it's interesting. We talk about history, that some of the ideas that this nation was that were like being discussed regularly. And this is they said late 1800s, early 1900s. That's not that long ago. It's long enough, thank God. But you know what I mean?
Get us out of there.
Yeah, but it's just 200 years ago. Am I doing the math right? Yeah, 200 years ago. Mm-hmm. So 2 full generations ago that those ideas.
It's more than 2 generations.
So I guess I'm thinking about people living to be 100. Okay, so
3
I guess
generations.
Yeah,
4
they
generations.
don't.
You're right. On average,
they don't have kids at 100 usually.
No, you're right. Good point.
They could.
Either way,
No.
so say
Some of them could.
Our
Mick Jagger may prove you wrong.
Our great grandparents would have been maybe touched by some of these ideas, we'll say, or not touched. Unfortunately,
I was about to say, touched is a
just trying to picture this guy
word
all confused that people aren't going for this.
Yeah, when he comes up with cornflakes of all things.
He's like, all right, they like the cornflakes.
The books aren't selling as good as I thought
They really
would.
like my cornflakes, but when I switch gears over here, you're not allowed to sleep
Jerry's
with your
going to be wrecked for 2 days now. Hey, I want to leave you with this one last thought too. Rogan had a very interesting post on his Instagram, and I found it interesting. He went to the Rolling Stones concert and shot a picture with his phone, I guess, of Jagger doing his thing, and he made a comment that guy has run up and down the stage for 90 minutes and done his whole Rolling Stone. He's the same age as Joe Biden.
Wow.
Just wrap your head around that for a second. And Keith Richards is only 2 years off. So nothing is impossible.
So the path to rock and roll is the way to go.
If there's a will to do something, there's a way. And we do not have to go gracefully into that night. I don't believe it.
See, and look around this is all this rock and roll memorabilia. This is the path. This is the way to go to longevity.
Yeah,
it's not all Kellogg's and yogurt.
Well, I told you, I told you off camera a little bit. I struggle a lot because I'm at that age where I'm funky age right now. I'm looking around and friends and so forth are sailing into, or they're looking toward that retirement thing, and grandkids, and my life so far hasn't moved to that yet. But it's hard for me then to sit back and say, wow, I still love everything in here, and the music makes me feel young and rebellious, and and all that stuff. I'm just at a weird age. Like, I don't know. I sometimes feel like I don't have my footing. Does it make any sense? Maybe not. I'm comfortable with who I am, but it's a confusing time because I just am not ready to go.
There are no rules.
Yeah, and I'm living my life that way,
and
I think this show is an example of, like, there's no effing rules in this show, and our show together has no rules either. And I think that's another reaffirmation that whatever I'm doing, at least in this little sphere here, we are doing something right here.
I think we proved today that there are no rules in this show whatsoever.
Jerry made a rule. He said we're not allowed to talk about Kellogg's anymore.
Okay, that's the first and only rule we'll ever make on this show.
First rule of fight.
Write it down. We're going to etch that into the table.
Put it like up on a plaque or something, you know
Put
what I
like
mean?
Don't laugh. I
Kellogg's and
will
like a
have
big like X.
I may have that frame when we go back to you.
Just the Kellogg symbol with like a big circle.
Bring humility.
Yeah.
Actively listen. Seek to understand.
Yep.
Find common
we
ground.
just, like,
And
put a
don't talk about Kellogg's.
Put a little
Number
post-it
5.
underneath of there.
Don't bring up the cornflakes.
In red.
Or the Go-Gurt.
Yeah.
No cornflakes permitted.
No.
A little weather vane with a little...
With a circle and a line through it.
All right, friends. I appreciate it. It was a blast, as
Good
usual.
times.
We'll do this very soon. Got other ideas coming, too. We're going to try to cram 6 people in this studio. Add 2 more.
Worlds collide. Yeah, it's gonna happen.
And
Worlds
the
collide.
UFO
The
and the
Christmas
Squad
special.
series are going to collide when Mr. James Krug and Sir Freddie Koala join the 4 of us here.
It's a Worlds Collide Christmas
It's
special.
going to
Oh yeah, I like that.
War of the Worlds Christmas special.
be EMP Christmas special number 1.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, sound good?
I already have my outfit picked out.
Oh, there we go. Oh, God. Ugly sweater contest. We can get some garland and some tinsel. We're going to really dress the place up for it, too.
I like it.
And
We better not set anything on fire.
Who's bringing the Christmas cookies? Because we're not doing it if there's no Christmas cookies.
That's all.
Yeah.
Eggnog, the whole bit. No, Freddie will spill it. I can't do it. All right, friends. Thanks so much. And, of course, we are out.
Live your best life. Stay off them cornflakes.
Stay on the drums.
Oh man. Oh, that was funny. I didn't anticipate that.
This is fucking hot. This is great.
What did you just say?
No idea.
And then when you thought it couldn't get
Dude,
any...
your face, you kept pleading with her to give you clarity, and it's fucking, and she's laughing so hard, she can't even respond, and you're like pleading for her to give you clarity, and ain't no one gonna be able to give you clarity on that
This is
shit.
a bunch of horse shit, but what is the premise behind cornflakes keeping you from masturbating? I don't understand.
And then
I think it was just
Like, okay, if someone's like socks on your hands all the time, I'd be like, crazy, but it makes some kind of sense. How do the cornflakes keep you from masturbating?
Well, and the best part is when you thought this person couldn't get any weirder, she reads on, and then we hear about the yogurt from both sides.
Like,
Both
Well,
ends.
yeah, wait, then I think you said Go-Gurt, and then I had some kind of flashback of like when I was a kid, was there a yogurt brand called Go-Gurt?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
man.
like the ones that are in the...
yeah, the Go-Gurt is the yogurt in the tube, and you push it out of the tube. That's why I said Go-Gurt. This guy,
Oh, it'll make you go alright.
this guy just wants to push Go-Gurt up his ass.
Talk about repressed.
Yeah, that's when I was
He wants to push-
thinking of the
yeah, he
rooster on
wants
the
to push
box.
Go-Gurt up everybody's ass.
Right on,
The
man.
rooster on the box, I was like, the repression, I get it. Like it was coming out.
Wow.
Oh, the outtakes are gonna be great.
Oh, that was intense.
I'm keeping this last 2 minutes.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.